All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And thank you for waiting patiently for the intro to finish up. We have some pretty interesting topics to go over and talk about today, one of which is definitely a bit of a surprise. The first topic we're going to be going over today talks about a Spider-Man live service game leaking out. Don't worry, I see some of you in the chat kind of getting a little bit upset, thinking, man, another live service superhero game. Well, you'll probably be happy to know that this game was canceled, seemingly. But we are getting a leaked trailer that reveals to us what was going to be in this Spider-Man game, this live service game. And, you know, it's not to say that we won't get something multiplayer related from Insomniac, but whatever this was supposed to be is not happening. So I want to go over this news with you guys and talk about it. I think that some people are not quite understanding what's going on here. I've seen that there are people reacting to this leaked Spider-Man 2 gameplay trailer or multiplayer trailer, and they're feeling like, you know, this game looked really good. Sony made a mistake canceling it. We could have had something great. So I want to talk about this because I think, again, quite a few people don't quite understand why this game was canceled, or the very likely reason why this game was canceled, and why this is probably actually a good thing in the end. So we're going to talk all about that. We're also going to be talking about Rise of the Ronin. It's coming out very soon. And the first batch of previews have officially released, and it sounds like Rise of the Ronin is going to be a pretty solid game. The previews, generally speaking, were overall very positive, so I think it's a great sign. We could have a pretty solid game on our hands here with Rise of the Ronin, which I think will be pretty reassuring to a lot of people. So, you know, we're going to dive into those previews later on in the stream and go over all the details of what people are saying. We're also going to be talking about Final Fantasy. We have Naoki Yoshida basically saying that he would like to direct the next Final Fantasy game. So this is very interesting because, you know, it was kind of a big deal that he directed Final Fantasy 16, and a lot of people are now wondering, like, you know, what comes after Final Fantasy 16? Well, obviously Final Fantasy 17, but who's going to direct it? You know, it's kind of a big deal. So looks like we may have somewhat confirmation here that Naoki Yoshida will be the one to direct the next mainline Final Fantasy game. So we're going to talk about this stuff. Before we dive into any of these topics, I just want to thank you guys once again for watching the content. I also want to thank anybody who watches the streams after the fact. I know not everybody can catch the streams live, so, you know, if you're somebody who is watching them later on, that helps a lot too. Do me a favor and hit that like button. If you want to just let me know that you enjoy the content and you want to help kind of get it out there and expose it to new viewers and help grow the community, hit that like button. There are 3 ways you can support my channel and the content directly. The first way is you can become a channel member. You gain access to some exclusive perks. One of those perks is the Members Lounge. We will be doing a Members Lounge after today's stream. So for any of my channel members that are here, please join me. One of the things I plan to do in the Members Lounge today is react to new game trailers. So yeah, we'll be doing that. At least some trailers. That won't be the entirety of the Members Lounge, but just an idea of what we're going to be doing. If you are already a channel member, the second way you can help support is by gifting memberships. It's a big thing we do here. Gets the community directly involved and, again, help support me directly. And last but certainly not least, please consider donating a super chat. You can ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It all helps tremendously. And so just a big thank you to everybody who supports the channel and the content directly. All right, so we're going to dive into the first topic here. The Spider-Man live service game leaks out. Well, I have a report here from Insider Gaming. Following the gargantuan Insomniac leak that hit the company hard a couple of months ago, content is still being pulled out that's revealing new in development and canceled projects and concepts. Most recently, users stumbled upon a trailer for the canceled multiplayer game Spider-Man: The Great Web and promptly leaked it online. This was supposed to be a 5-person multiplayer game built on a live service foundation, but it was struck down by Sony as revealed by the Insomniac leaks. In the leaked trailer for The Great Web, which looks incredibly polished, we get a glimpse at what the product might have looked like. Now, for obvious reasons, I cannot play this trailer for you. At least I don't want to risk playing it. If you go on Twitter or if you go on YouTube and you search it, you can find it all over. But, again, this is a leaked trailer that was obtained illegally. And so for the sake of protecting the channel here, I don't want to show it. But yeah, you can get a pretty good idea in your head of a 5-player Spider-Man co-op game set in in New York City. I think it's not that difficult to imagine what that looks like. Certainly not. Because I assure you that whatever you're imagining in your head, like what would this game look like when you see the trailer, that's exactly what you'll see. But the article continues, in the short trailer that was leaked online today, Spider-Man: The Great Web is exposed in full, with the video showcasing incredible multiplayer elements that would have pit 5 players against the Sinister Six in New York City. It would have been built around a multiverse model, which was supposedly busted open by Scarlet Witch, and there would have been character customization options leading to a diverse array of superheroes coming together to fight the bad guys. Here's the dialogue in the trailer, and it was actually narrated by Yuri Lowenthal. New York City, nothing in the whole world I wouldn't do for this big, beautiful apple. One moment, you're scarfing down a slice from Vinny's. The next, you're stopping a super villain prison break. Sometimes you can swing it as a lone wolf, but you're better off with some friends. I've seen the Sinister Six before, but never so methodical, so savage. I don't think I'm going to be enough this time, guys, but together we just might be. Months ago, a series of images leaked from Spider-Man: The Great Web, but this is the first time we've seen the trailer surface. It's narrated by Yuri Lowenthal, who voices Peter Parker, and it looks ready for market. It genuinely appears to be a trailer for a product that could have been released days after it was revealed. It's bizarre and heartbreaking for Spider-Man fans the world over that the product won't see the light of day. Now, before I give my thoughts on this, I want to also highlight another report that comes from PlayStation Lifestyle. This was reported December 20th, 2023. Insomniac's multiplayer game was Spider-Man meets GTA Online, possibly canceled. Documents leaked by Insomniac Games hackers reveal that the studio was working on a Spider-Man multiplayer game. The studio previously confirmed that it was working on a multiplayer game while hiring for the project, but never officially revealed it. There's some confusion surrounding the game's current status. Billed as Spider-Man meets GTA Online in an internal presentation, Insomniac planned to launch the game by 2026, but a leaked roadmap for the studio's upcoming projects has no mention of this multiplayer game, leading many to believe it may have been canceled. It also doesn't help that Sony's live service push, which was in full swing up until last year, ended up falling flat. As a result, numerous games ended up being canceled, including The Last of Us multiplayer. So, yeah, I wanted to mention this to you guys because, again, this is not something brand new. We heard about this, live service Spider-Man game, The Great Web, and we did hear that internally it was basically being pitched as Spider-Man meets GTA Online, which not sure if you guys are picking up on just how ambitious that notion is, but that's what's important to pay attention to here is people are not understanding when they're watching this trailer that that's how this game was pitched. It is the next GTA Online, essentially, but for superheroes with Spider-Man. And when you look at GTA Online, when you look at everything that has gone into that game, when you look at how many years it took and how much investment pretty much took all of Rockstar Games, how long and how much investment it took for GTA Online to get where it is, the notion that Insomniac was going to be able to do that, well, I mean, it's a tough one. We have IP Gaming, a member for 10 months, saying Spider-Man as a game as a service. Did they not learn the lesson with Avengers or Suicide Squad? CEOs doing too much coke with constant capitalism growth is frying their brain stems. Well, see, that's what's interesting is you do think about the Avengers, right? You do think about Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. And you think about how, man, the on-paper concept of this sounds great. Like, I can understand why a development team or even a video game publisher is like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But the execution is where things seemingly always fall apart. Now, if you watch this Spider-Man live service trailer, what I noticed is that it doesn't look very enticing, to be completely honest. This article written by Insider Gaming, they say that they believe this is like a final trailer, like a release trailer. No chance. The game did not look very polished in terms of being ready for launch. It did look a little bit rough around the edges. It did not look like Spider-Man 2. So it looked like it was more of an internal trailer, or maybe one that needed more work. But when I watched it, it really doesn't look that compelling. And I honestly think that, I almost said Naughty Dog, that Insomniac and Sony made the right call by choosing to cancel this, because what it essentially looked like is maybe some kind of basic co-op DLC. Maybe some kind of co-op update. It did not look like it would be okay as a full game. Like, it looked like people would have potentially been very disappointed. I mean, it's hard to say if it would have been free to play. I feel like it probably would have been a paid game, but it just looked, I'll be honest with you, I feel like if you watch this trailer with no sound, you would almost think like, oh, is this just like a new Spider-Man 2 update or something like that? You definitely wouldn't walk away from it thinking, oh, this is a brand new game. Hype. I don't think so. That's just my opinion based off of the trailer. But again, it's an internal trailer. So we have Matt Fu coming in. Matt Fu dropping 5 memberships for you guys today, getting us started off strong. Guys, let's get some W's flowing in the chat for our good friend Matt Fu. He's always coming in, dropping some gifts for you guys. Matt, thank you for that, man. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Always have to lower that a little bit. So, Matt, let me add those membership gifts to the counter here. Yeah, guys, if we do hit 25 members today, I will bring Boss in and I will give him his snacks. Okay, so it's up to you if you want to make that happen or not. Yeah, W's in the chat, man. So here's the thing. I'm not saying that the trailer or the idea of a co-op Spider-Man experience is bad. I think that's fine. But I think the huge mistake here made by Insomniac and potentially Sony is just truly underestimating what a live service game, a AAA live service game, needs to actually work. I mean, I've seen so many people online today expressing profound disappointment that this game was canceled, that it's not coming to market, that Sony made a mistake, Insomniac made a mistake. This would have been amazing. And I just don't think they understand what Sony is trying to achieve. Sony's ambition with live service is not to just have some small to mid-size multiplayer games that can make a little bit of revenue consistently. That's not what they're trying to achieve. Sony is basically taking the go big or go home approach, where they want to strike gold with a juggernaut live service game that can sit up there in the upper echelon with games like GTA Online, with games like Fortnite, like Call of Duty, etc., right? And others that I'm not mentioning, but I'm sure there are many coming to your mind. The truth is, there are not really that many games that sit in that upper echelon that make that type of money, but it is the dream of every video game publisher to have that game. And that is the reality. It is their dream to have that $1 billion, quarterly moneymaker. But it's so rare and so difficult. And we have our man Hellbound 1981, the legend returns, dropping a 10 bomb on you guys. Hellbound does it again. Dude, thank you so much for that, bud. Hellbound just brought us up to 15 members on the day. Hellbound is clearly very eager to see Boss get some snacks. I really appreciate that, Hellbound.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for keeping the membership train rolling today. Let's see.
Enough from me.
I'll throw a Jim Ryan in
We're
there.
going to have the games do our talking.
It's been a while since we've used the Jim Ryan soundbite. So, Hellbound, I really appreciate it, man. Let me, is that showing up? By the way, maybe you guys can tell me, is it showing the membership notifications when you guys are gifting? I know it shows it when I manually add it to the bar or to the counter, but is it still showing like so-and-so was gifted a membership? I can't see it on my end. You guys are saying it is. Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. Thank you for letting me know. So Hellbound, yeah, thank you so much for that, man. I appreciate all the support you've shown the channel, and you continue to show the channel and the community. So there we go. Now we're 10 memberships away from hitting our first goal and from Boss getting his snacks. But yeah, I think people need to really think about the whole idea of Insomniac pitching Spider-Man meets GTA Online. Why do you think Insomniac would feel the need to pitch it that way to Sony? Because Insomniac knows what Sony's goals are. Sony made it very clear that we want to strike gold. We want a big-time AAA live service game that can just rake in the billions. That's what we want. And of course, if you're Insomniac, you think, well, we have Spider-Man. We have Marvel. We have like some of the biggest IPs across the industry, or not just the industry, but in the world. Maybe we can be the ones to make this happen. And so the ambition of it is admirable, right? But the execution is just, it doesn't seem worth the risk, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because what I think happened is somebody internally at Sony, either somebody or multiple people, they saw this trailer that Insomniac put together, and I think they just came to the conclusion that this isn't going to do it. It's just not. Like, this is going to fail. But there's also this aspect as well. Let's take a look at Naughty Dog. Why did Naughty Dog cancel The Last of Us multiplayer? They told us themselves. It wasn't because the game wasn't ambitious. It wasn't because the game was bad. And it wasn't because the game wasn't ready to go or they were having trouble actually creating it. It was simply because they came to the realization that if we do this, knowing what Sony's ambition is here, Sony wants a full-blown billion-dollar money-making machine. This is going to be what we do permanently going forward. Like, if we actually achieve that, this is going to be what our studio does now. Because the big thing that people do not fully understand and they completely underestimate is how much development talent and how much manpower is actually needed to maintain a AAA live service game. This is something that out of everything I've seen people talk about, They get this wrong constantly. I've seen people saying that they just need 100 people, they just need 200 people. Wrong. You can run a live service game with 100 people, with 200 people, but I assure you that live service game will not be in the upper echelon. That live service game is going to have trouble outputting content in the same way, in the same time frame as these upper echelon AAA live service games. And the reason for that is because if you look at these big AAA successful live service games, something that they all have in common is they have at minimum like 600 to 700 developers at any one time working on that singular product. And in fact, some of these development teams, like let's just take Call of Duty, for example. Call of Duty, I'd say, is on the extreme end, of course. 3,000 developers working on Call of Duty, feeding that beast at all times. But let's look at Bungie. How many developers work at Bungie that are working on Destiny 2? Anywhere between 650 and 800 developers working on Destiny 2. Of course, they're working on other projects, but most of the manpower and the dev time is going into, we need to produce more content like quickly, or we're going to lose players. That's what happens, man. You're mentioning Helldivers 2. Well, let's be honest here. Helldivers 2, they're going to be able to create new content with their development team of about 100 developers. But do you really think they're going to be able to create as much content as frequently as Fortnite, as Call of Duty, as Destiny 2, as Apex Legends? You know? The answer is no, they're not. They will be able to maintain their game, but they're not going to be able to do it at the same rate because it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. If you want to have new content every single month, and that's the thing too, is like, what would be considered meaningful content? Meaningful, like big updates. You need a lot of people because you're basically, think about it. When you think about a AAA game being developed, how many developers work on that game? Well, sometimes we hear about like 150 developers. In some cases, we hear 200 developers, 250. And that's for a game that's going to be developed piece by piece over the course of 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Now, when you're talking about a living, breathing game that is, it literally lives or dies based on, okay, what's next? You're going to need a lot of different development teams working on that because it's something that the biggest live service games have proven is that you need meaningful content updates. You need like really meaty, big content updates, or you will lose players. And that's just the way it goes. The dude, a member for 10 months, says once VR catches mass appeal, good price, no sickness, etc., Fortnite will take over. It's already a metaverse. With VR, it will be Ready Player One. I do agree with that, mostly. I mean, I think it might be a little bit more complicated. I don't know if it'll... I mean, we do have to question like how relevant Fortnite will be like 15 plus years from now. It seems like it's still going to be relevant. Fortnite doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. So I could see that being a future. Yeah. And that's really, I don't know. To be honest, that's not something I really want to think about because that sounds kind of, something about that sounds kind of sad to me. I don't know why. I don't know that I would want to like, you know, live in a world where it's like, hey man, I'll catch you in Fortnite because that's where I live now, you know? Like, I mean, we're already pretty close to that, but you could be right. Yeah, that doesn't sound like gaming to me. But getting back to the live service conversation, we really have to, I think, try to be a little bit more understanding of the live service landscape in that we just saw Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League get wrecked, to be completely honest. That game got bodied. And think about prior to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, we just saw what happened with Gotham Knights, where Gotham Knights was seemingly trying to position itself as some kind of live service looter shooter type thing. Although it wasn't a shooter, but just having like live service elements. And then they got like a lot of, I don't know if you guys remember this, like there was a lot of concern, like, oh, is this gonna be a live service game? And they were like, nah, not really, just co-op. But people were very nervous. And this is why it's so strange to me and so weird to see people acting like, man, what we could have had with this Spider-Man game as a service. And it's like, there's a really good chance this would have been a dumpster fire train wreck, man. And I would definitely prefer to see this outcome where they're like, you know what? Not worth the risk. There's a good chance this thing's going to crash and burn. Let's just axe it now and move on to our single player games. Because that's it. That's the thing too, is let's say it didn't crash and burn. Let's say it was a huge success. How is Insomniac going to continue to make these big AAA single player games? How are they going to do that if they are constantly under the pressure of, man, we have this really super successful live service game and it's a machine that needs to constantly be fed every 2 to 3 months? Exactly. They couldn't. It's not feasible. The only way that would be feasible is to basically cut Insomniac in two, where one studio at Insomniac would be anywhere between 600 and 1,000 developers just feeding this beast that is the live service Spider-Man game. And then the other team would also be very large, consisting of anywhere between 250 and 400 developers that are just focused on all these single player games that they're planning on developing. But think about that. That would be a level of investment that is yet frankly just not realistic at all. Because think about it, right? Who's to say that wouldn't, like a move, let me put it to you this way. A move like that is what ends studios. Look at what just happened. Look at how Sony just had to lay off a bunch of people, shut down a studio, cancel multiple projects. It's because they just threw all this money at developers, at studios, and said, we're going to make live service. And then when they realized that we're not going to make any money on this shit, then heads start to roll, unfortunately. And that exact same thing would have happened with Insomniac. In fact, that did happen with Insomniac. Insomniac did suffer layoffs, and you do have to wonder if this is part of that. Yeah, exactly. That's two of Sony's major studios canceling games as a service, Naughty Dog and Insomniac. You're saying it does look like Jim Ryan really forced all of PlayStation Studios to do live service, and now Totoki is cleaning his shit. It does seem like that, yes. And I also want to say, too, something else I did see people mentioning is they think this might have something to do with the licensing fee for Disney. Basically, like, even if the game was super successful and did make a lot of money over a long period of time, that maybe Sony found that it wouldn't be that profitable for them because of the high licensing fees, where they would be losing a big percentage of that to Disney forever, basically, for as long as the game is making money and successful. So you're saying DC Universe Online was the only successful live service superhero game? Actually, yeah, I forgot about that game. That game's been going for some time. To be honest, though, DC Universe Online was like ahead of the curve, I guess, where they were, I don't know, they just kind of followed the MMO route and they really leaned into that, and it did work for them. But I just think today the landscape is different, and I'm happy to see this, because you know what? I will be honest in saying that I think I got ahead of myself in like thinking about Jim Ryan's approach to live service, and I thought in my mind, like, you know what, this is a great idea. Like, every one of Sony's major studios can have a single player, like a big AAA single player game, and they can have like a AAA live service game that they maintain, and they can just kind of have the best of both worlds. And what I didn't understand when I thought that is exactly what a lot of people today still don't understand is, do you know how much, like, do you know how high a studio has to scale up to achieve something like that? Like, it's really not feasible. It's not. And even if it was feasible, it will collapse in on itself at some point. I mean, even when you look at Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty, I would say, is the best example of a gigantic team of studios where the goal is every single year, every 12 months, new single player campaign, new multiplayer, and a new zombies mode, right? Like that's what we do. And we have over 3,000 developers in constant rotation, making sure that we can do that. But as we've seen, it does collapse sometimes. For example, Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4 did not have a single player campaign, and people were like, what the hell? And the reality is that they just couldn't get it together in time. They did not have enough time. The content wasn't coming together, so they just had no choice but to ship a Call of Duty and say, sorry, there is no single player campaign this time. Deal with it. And that's exactly what people did. They said, okay. But, you know, you could tell, like, maybe you get away with it that one time. Make sure it doesn't happen again. But then we look at Modern Warfare 3 from last year, and we see where the problems arise, where it's like the need for the machine to constantly be fed of, we need this game to drop. Look at how much flack their single player portion of Modern Warfare 3 got, where people were like, what is this? This is like DLC, and you're selling it for full price. And so I'm just trying to point out that even one of the most well-oiled machines out there, that is Call of Duty and Infinity Ward, Treyarch, Sledgehammer Games, 3,000 plus developers. The pressure, like the risk and the pressure is so high that if just one thing goes wrong, it's like, this could be it, man. Like, this could bring the whole thing down if it doesn't land. And, you know, to be honest, I think Call of Duty has kind of gotten out of a pinch multiple times just due to the yearly conditioning, kind of like the sports games where it's like, oh yeah, I'll just buy the new Call of Duty. That's fine. But you know, it's important to understand that most studios could never do that. In fact, 99.9% of studios and video game publishers could never do that. And I think it just would have been scary, man. If you think about it, right? It would have been scary if like The Last of Us multiplayer did come out and this Spider-Man live service game did come out, and it's like they're both, I don't want to say bad. I don't think they would have been bad, but just like it becomes clear like neither of these games are going to be massive hits. Like they're just going to be like okay, but probably forgotten about in a year or so. That would have been really bad. MBG, isn't this the proclaimed reason of Jim Ryan's $3.2 billion acquisition of Bungie, supposedly bringing in Sony Studios learning games as a service or live service? Yes. Yes. And I think where the domino, like the first domino to fall, I believe, I think it was a $3.6 billion acquisition. The first domino that fell, I believe, came in the form of Sony's realization that Bungie isn't making money. Bungie is losing a lot of money. Bungie is failing. That was the first domino to fall. And I think after that, basically all eyes were on Jim Ryan saying, just kind of looking at him like, Jim, you bought these guys. You made us spend $3.6 billion on this team that is failing. And they are having, like, they don't know what they're doing, money-wise or management-wise. And this is the same team that you brought in to oversee all of our other teams. So it's like, from that point forward, I think, yeah, all the dominoes fell, where as we are looking at now, the Spider-Man live service game, Yeah, cancel that. That's going to be a bad idea. Spider-Man meets GTA Online? I don't think so. I don't think so. The Last of Us multiplayer, I'll be honest, it sounded like that game would have been incredible, but I don't know. It seems like at around the same time that Jim Ryan announced he was retiring, the higher ups at Naughty Dog were like, yeah, we're not doing this. We're not turning into a live service studio. Sorry. And then not too long after, London studio gets shut down. Twisted Metal live service apparently canned. Layoffs across multiple PlayStation studios, all of those studios working on live service projects. So I know it's all negative. None of this is necessarily positive, but the more I think about it and as time goes by, the more I start to think that, this could have been Sony very narrowly avoiding the iceberg, so to speak, where they were, Jim Ryan was steering the ship and it's like, dude, it's right there. You're going to hit the iceberg. It's going to be over. And I think at like the last second, somebody at Sony was like, get the hell out of here, Jim. We're turning the ship around, make a hard left. And I agree. Yeah, I do want to talk about that too. Live service is not always bad. In fact, I don't have a problem with live service. I've even said for a long time that, hey, I was behind this live service push because, well, to be completely honest, like I thought Sony would have been more competent. Not to be so brutal, but yeah, like I had more faith that Sony would do a better job than this. And again, I'm not talking about Helldivers 2. I think Helldivers 2 is kind of the silver lining here, but I was not expecting just basically complete disaster. I was expecting some failures. Like, okay, maybe a couple of these games aren't going to work out, but I wasn't expecting it to just be like, yeah, we made a mistake buying Bungie. The Last of Us multiplayer, we're not doing that. And all of our other studios working on live service, we're either going to scale it down or cancel it. I wouldn't have expected that because to me, that's just like, well, it begins to sound like you guys just shouldn't have even bothered doing this. And you just completely underestimated the level of not just investment, but difficulty involved. And so I just think, as I said previously, and it's worth reiterating now, I think it's a situation where the on paper idea sounds fantastic. And I think that's why Jim Ryan was able to convince everybody at Sony, like, this is the way forward. I mean, I was convinced where it's like, this sounds like a great idea. But then like when you actually get down to it, it's like, now it's time to actually put it into action. The realization very quickly makes itself known that, oh man, this isn't working at all. And I think we may have just lost a lot of money, and we're gonna have to trim down now because we don't know what we're doing. I think that's just what it comes down to, man. I just think I have a serious question for you. I'm just curious to see what you guys have to say. This Spider-Man live service game, The Great Web, this game was pitched to Sony as Insomniac's Spider-Man meets GTA Online. Do you believe, it's a serious question, do you believe that Insomniac would have been able to maintain a Spider-Man live service game in the same way that Rockstar has been able to maintain GTA Online? Do you think that would have been a possibility? Just waiting to see the replies flow in here. That's interesting. I don't see a single person saying yes, which is, well, Kyle Fritz believes yes. Kyle Fritz is the only person so far I've seen say yes. Everybody, the general consensus, the overwhelming consensus here seems to be that no, you guys don't think so. And I'm in agreement because I think people are also forgetting. Think about Rockstar themselves. think about, you know, oh, we were going to do single player DLC, but we canceled it. Why was the single player GTA 5 DLC canceled? Why? We all know why. Because they said, you know what? We need to make content for GTA Online because that's more important and that's what will make the money. So that's Rockstar Games, by the way. That's like one of the biggest video game developers in the world. You want to talk about a team that should have been able to do both single player DLC and content for GTA Online. And even they were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Because again, it's not that Rockstar doesn't develop single player. They still do. They developed Red Dead Redemption 2. They're developing the single player portion of GTA 6. But there's also a reason like why it takes that long, because a good portion of that dev time, if not, certainly half or more than half of it, is going towards GTA Online. And so that's why it's like, look, well, we also want to make... There's also the fact that if you look at Red Dead Redemption 2, they definitely position that game where we want to have Red Dead Online be as successful as GTA Online. And look at what they did as soon as it didn't land. As soon as it became clear that, yeah, Red Dead Online's not going to be doing the same numbers as GTA Online, they were like, okay, then we're done here. And you just have to think that Sony probably would have had the same exact approach as well, where what are the numbers looking like for this Spider-Man, The Great Web? It's a co-op only game. It's a co-op only game, and people are pointing to like games like Helldivers 2, where, well, hey, Helldivers 2 is a co-op game and that's successful, but we don't know the long-term viability of Helldivers 2. We just don't. You can make an assumption, sure. Oh, Helldivers 2 will be great forever. For the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it'll be still one of the most played games. Okay, but you don't know that. And if somebody says, oh, it's going to fail and nobody's going to play it anymore, or it's going to lose a lot of players, we don't know that either, but that does seem more likely for a game like Helldivers 2. And I'm not trying to be negative towards it. I'm just being realistic about it. It's going to be tough for Arrowhead to maintain a really, really high player base over 6 months, over a year, over 2 years with a dev team of 100 devs. And they did say they're hiring. So if they can beef up enough, and I've talked about this, if Arrowhead can beef up enough and they can really nail down like a consistent content pipeline with meaningful content drops frequently, then yeah, they could definitely go the distance with Helldivers 2. But they were not prepared for that. And that's not how the game was necessarily... I don't know that it was developed with that in mind. Like, they made it clear that they developed Helldivers 2 to support it for a long time. But I don't think that they thought, oh, we're going to be one of the most successful live service games on the market. I don't think that that was their ambition. It just so happens that they are in that position where it's like, well, you could be, depending on what you do now, right? But I just think that at the end of the day, I saw this Spider-Man live service into this Spider Web or the Great Web trailer, and I didn't really see anything there that made me go, oh my God, that would have been phenomenal, or this would have been the next big thing. I saw something that looked fun. I saw something that I still kind of hope happens. Like, we talk about the Last of Us multiplayer game and how it's like, man, why can't Naughty Dog just release just a Factions 2? Doesn't have to be a 10-year live service plan with a battle pass. Just give us Factions 2, Why can't we just have that? I kind of feel that exact same way about the Spider-Man multiplayer, where it's like, why does it have to be the next GTA Online? Why can't it just be a multiplayer co-op experience? And maybe that's what it'll turn into eventually. So yeah, I don't know. It's just it's interesting. I wasn't expecting to wake up today to this news. Kyle, you're saying Insomniac will come back to this idea. I think they will too. Like, again, it's not that Sony's giving up on live service. It's just I think they are at this point accepting that if Sony finds monetary success with live service, it's going to be on a smaller scale. And maybe they'll still be hopeful that one day they'll hit the jackpot and they'll get their own GTA Online, their own Fortnite, their own Call of Duty, whatever you want to call it. But I just think for now, they're like, look, we can't be dumping billions of dollars into this knowing that it's the chances of it working are so slim and small. So I think they're pumping the brakes pretty hard here. And I do think that at the end of the day, it's a good idea that this is what they do. Because what I am seeing right now is a bit of a retreat in a good way. I'm seeing Sony kind of go in a more defensive position, entering a defensive mode of like, okay, we just went out there, we tried, we spent a lot of money while we were trying, and it's failing, and it's failing pretty hard. So we're just going to retreat. We're going to go back to the drawing board, and we're going to go back to what works. And what works for Sony, regardless of what anybody tells you, are the single-player games. The AAA single-player games and the AA single-player games that they kind of release in between sometimes. That works for Sony. Of course, we can talk about the shrinking profit margins, but believe me when I tell you, if Sony were to abandon that, well, you better believe that they're not going to have to worry about shrinking profit margins anymore because they just won't have any profit margins at all. Well, not any at all, but, it would be significantly worse. And that's the reality. So I'm not against the idea of Insomniac saying, you know what, just forget this live service game. Let's just focus on our single player projects. And maybe down the line, we'll figure out some kind of multiplayer thing that makes more sense. And we have Titus coming in. Titus comes in and drops another membership gift for you guys. Titus, thank you so much, man, for keeping this membership train going strong today. We had Hellbound drop a 10 bomb, Matt Fu dropped 5, and now Titus, you dropped 1, bringing us up to 16 members on the day. So we're getting closer to the goal, guys. Thank you so much for all of your support.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You think PlayStation should just license out live service games? Truthfully, at this point, that would probably be the wiser thing to do, yes. We have Josh here with a super chat saying, good, all hands on deck for Wolverine. Also, I won't be getting to Rise of the Ronin on the 22nd. I played Final Fantasy VII Remake all day and still haven't progressed the story in Chapter 2. I'm right there with you, Josh. I don't know what's going to happen for me. I'm leaning more towards I'm probably going to try. I'm likely going to fail, but I will at least try to balance out playing both Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Rise of the Ronin at the same time. Again, I will likely fail in doing that, but I don't want to pass up on Rise of the Ronin at launch. It does sound very good, which we're going to talk about that next. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, as I said earlier, I'm not against live service games when they're done right. And I would love to see Sony have some successful, prominent live service games, because if those games were to succeed, that would mean they're very good. But I just think when it comes to the level of risk, you just have to start to ask yourself, like, is this really worth it? Like, is it worth having an amazing Last of Us live service game if we know that, well, you're probably not going to get any more single player games from Naughty Dog going forward? No, I don't think that's worth it. Is the answer for Sony to license out The Last of Us and have another studio make a live service Last of Us game? I'm going to say that's probably not going to happen because that also sounds extremely risky. You know, you're talking about one of the most prestigious, beloved IPs, and the idea that, you know, Naughty Dog's just going to hand that to some third party studio or second party studio. And, you know, it's like, man, good luck. You know, like it sounds like a lot could go wrong here. So, you know, it just does seem like Sony will have to take a different approach with their live service. I think, again, not to sound like a broken record, but I do think that the approach going forward for Sony with live service is you're going to have to think smaller scale. And I know that that's not what Sony wants to do because, yes, that means you're probably not going to have a game that's making anywhere near the levels of the type of money that Call of Duty or or Fortnite are making, but you can still have a competently run live service game that can make some money. Might not be making all the money, but it can still make some money. And I think that could work for Sony. Hanzo says, "What don't you understand?" Unless you're not talking to me, Hanzo, I don't know. Will Metal Gear Delta have Metal Gear Online? No chance. No. Man, could you imagine that? Now that would be amazing, but no. Hanzo, you're like, no, bro. I'm not talking to you, MBG. It's all good. I was gonna say, Hanzo, don't take that tone with me. I'm just kidding. Jake Skew, you're saying MBG, my store lost almost $1 million. Well, that sucks. MBG, you watched the new CNBC Jim Ryan interview this week. They asked him that exact question and more. No, was there another Jim Ryan interview that I missed? I didn't know about that. Irfin, you're saying the only reason the Horizon multiplayer is not canceled is likely because NCSoft is making it. That's what I'm thinking too, Irfin. Yeah. Hold on. This is news to me. I didn't know that there was another Jim Ryan interview. I'm looking this up now, real quick. You said it was CNBC? See if I can find it. Can CNBC on YouTube, can the Sony PlayStation remain the top selling gaming console? Sony gaming chief, no, that was from 2023. Are you guys sure about this? How Sony's PlayStation has rivaled Microsoft and Nintendo in the console wars. How Sony beat Microsoft and Nintendo with PlayStation 2 days ago. Let me see. Well, are you sure this is a new Jim Ryan interview and they're not just quoting him from a previous one? Oh my God, the amount of pop-ups right now. Yeah, I don't think there's anything new, man. We went into markets where video gaming had never really been a thing. Yeah, I think these are old quotes that they're pulling up, guys, from Jim Ryan. I don't think they're new. It's a whole interview. I feel like you guys are trolling me right now because I'm not seeing this. All right, I just looked up Jim Ryan interview. You guys have to be trolling me. I'll sort it by this week. No. There's no Jim Ryan interview, guys. You're saying they just released it. No, you're trolling me. You're trolling me. Why are you guys trolling me like this? CNBC.com. Nah. There's no Jim Ryan interview. Guys, leave. No, I'm just kidding. Don't leave, but somebody all right, look, if you guys are being serious, send it to me on Twitter. All right? Send it to me over on Twitter. If you're not lying. All right. All right, with that being said, though, we are going to move on to the next topic. Big Shaq says, I think they are trolling. All right, we're going to move on to the next topic, though. That concludes what I have to say about the Spider-Man live service leak. Again, if you want to check the trailer out, I would show it to you guys, but I don't want to risk getting in some kind of trouble with Sony. So just go look that up and you can see it for yourself, but it's exactly what you would imagine. We're going to move on to talking about Rise of the Ronin. All right, because previews for Rise of the Ronin are officially out, and a lot of people, I think, are on the fence about this game. They're not sure. Is Rise of the Ronin going to be for me? Is it going to be worth it? What's it like? Well, it seems like it's a mix of a bunch of different games. So I'm starting here with VGC, and they say, so far, Rise of the Ronin feels like a lot of games we love. They say during the first few hours that we were able to cover in this preview, we were reminded of Assassin's Creed, Ghost of Tsushima, Nioh, and most obviously Sekiro. While Rise of the Ronin isn't quite a Souls game and sails much closer to something like the aforementioned Ghost of Tsushima, it's impossible not to be reminded of From Software's classic when in combat. Rise of the Ronin skirmishes are all about parrying and posture. Every character you fight will have a posture bar that's separate from their health. Depleting this will open the enemy up to a deadly blow that will do a lot of damage or instantly kill some lower level enemies. The fastest way to get rid of this posture is to accurately parry incoming attacks. Parrying normal attacks will prevent you from taking damage and reduce small amount of the enemy's posture. When the attack glows red and the enemy charges at you full of bloodlust, you have the option of dodging it and avoiding the potentially huge amount of damage said attack will do, or you can attempt to parry it, which, more often than not, instantly opens the window for a devastating blow. Combat is fun, and it's satisfying to get into a rhythm with taking down multiple enemies. The only issue we faced early on is reading what the enemy is going to do. Outside of the two colors differentiating what kind of attack is going to be used, there's little in the way of telegraphing. In practice, this means that even for the weakest enemies, you'll likely have to watch them perform their attacks a few times before you get their patterns down. This is fine for huge bosses, but it really interrupts the flow of fighting mobs and ruins the cinematic feel the game achieves in other areas. Like Nioh, enemies in the game can be weak or resistant to specific fighting styles, which can easily be switched between. This largely impacts how much damage those devastating blows do when you've whittled down the composure of an enemy. It's deeply frustrating when you waste a deadly blow on a resistant enemy to do virtually no damage, but that's there to teach the player to always be changing weapons and modes of attack, and they have a bunch of screenshots here, which look pretty good. I mean, graphically, maybe not too good, but good enough. They say here, speaking of, the game has some ranged weapons, namely bows, guns, and shuriken. I think I'm saying that right. Guns are used more in the Bloodborne sense as a means to stun and not a way to speedrun the game, blasting away your enemy soldiers. The bow and the shuriken are fun to incorporate into a stealth playstyle, something we implemented routinely during our early hours. Rise of the Ronin is an open world game spanning several different districts of Japan. The game is set in the pre-Tokyo region of Edo. The story explores factions of pro and anti-imperialistic factions set against the backdrop of colonizing Americans attempting to establish political ties in the region. Players begin on a mission to reconnect with a lost companion following a mission gone wrong during the game's intro. Once let loose in the open world, you're able to explore freely, doing small odd jobs for local people, which will gain you favor in the prefecture. There are multi-stage side quests, or there are things as simple as a roadside disturbance that can be resolved via talking, or the end of your blade. The open world feels like it has a lot to do, even in the towns themselves. They feel more like movie studio backlots with little of the hustle and bustle one would expect from a modern open world game of a similar size. Similarly, the visuals are not stellar. The game offers 3 graphical options, prioritizing frame rate, visuals, and ray tracing respectively. Being a Team Ninja game, there really should only be one option. In practice, this means sacrificing a lot of visual flair for a rock-solid frame rate. The game is lit beautifully, and there have already been several well-staged fights against beautiful, vibrant backdrops during our playtime, but when you get up closer to the character models or buildings, things start to look rather last-gen. To get around, you're given a glider that can be opened at will. You've also got a grappling hook, which, when used in conjunction with the glider, can send you essentially flying across the busiest areas of the map. We hope later in the game there's some kind of upgrade that allows us to do something similar in the wooded areas around the domesticated settlements. As for now, we've largely been relegated to horses when far from large buildings. So far, while we're enjoying our time with Rise of the Ronin, we're waiting for its standout moment. Other than some dated-looking visuals, every element of the game is fine to great. Nothing is so far best in class. There's plenty of room for that to land, especially considering the size of the game and Team Ninja's pedigree. So, yeah, it sounds, I mean, that was VGC's entire write-up, and you know what I find most interesting and also concerning is how similar to Sekiro it is. You guys, I know, MBG, when are you going to play Sekiro? And maybe one day I will get around to it, but that's interesting. I was not expecting that at all. But there are difficulty options as well. We have Chris Brown here with a super chat saying, cinematic games are wearing off on me. Too many cutscenes, not enough gameplay in between. I'm finding myself playing older games that are pure action. Yeah, I hear you, man. I can't say that I agree entirely in that, like, I don't know that I feel the exact same way. A game like Helldivers 2 for me, I would say definitely kind of fills that spot of I'm just looking to get into the action and just focus on the gameplay and not worry about cutscenes or, the cinematics of it all. But I mean, I'm playing Rebirth now. I'd say that's a pretty good mix of it, but I don't know. It's interesting with Rise of the Ronin. I don't get this feeling that it's a super cinematic game. Like, it clearly does have cinematics. It clearly does have a story. But I do get the sense that the gameplay is going to be more of the standout in a game like Rise of the Ronin. But I don't think you're the only one who feels that way. I think that some people are feeling like, maybe it's okay if some of these games, maybe focus a little bit less on the cinematic side. I don't mind it, though. I do like cinematic games. To be totally honest, I do. Chris, you're also saying, I love Death Stranding, but damn, bro, a 10 to 15 minute cutscene is crazy. I got bored and turned the game off. I think that's kind of a Kojima thing. There are definitely certain parts of Death Stranding or previous Metal Gear games where it's like, all right, it's okay if maybe, all right, it's fine. It's Kojima, whatever. I guess this could be 15 minutes. Yeah, exactly. 10 to 15 minutes is light for Kojima. Yeah, play Metal Gear Solid 4, and you'll see. You'll see. Navinzer, member for 1 month, saying, look up, can the PlayStation remain the top-selling game console? It's a CNBC interview. We also would like an apology, LOL. I will apologize to you if I can find it. Somebody said they sent it to me on Twitter. Okay. The 1222 and Paradigm. Let me see. Hold on, I'm watching it now. I'm seeing if I can find the part where. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see if I can find the Jim Ryan part. Sean Layden's in here. All right, hold on. Let me All right, you know what? Here's what we'll do. I don't want to deviate too far from this topic. So you guys are right. All right. I apologize to you guys. To be fair though, come on. You guys gotta bear with me here. You guys made it sound like this was like a full-blown, like just one-on-one Jim Ryan interview. And this is more of like it's almost like a documentary style. And it's about 16 minutes, I think. So what we'll do, I apologize though. You guys were right. What we'll do is once I finish up all the main topics of discussion at the end of the stream, I will bring this up and we can watch it and react to it. It's about 60 minutes long. Okay, so thank you for letting me know about that. But let's continue on here with Rise of the Ronin. Anthony Turner says, you better be. See, that's what's interesting. A2, you're saying, and no one mentioned it in the news. I mean, my assumption is that, well, Jim Ryan must not have said anything of importance if it wasn't covered in the news, but did they miss something? I don't know. We will find out. All right, so let's get back here to Rise of the Ronin. Have another write-up here, another preview from Gaming Bolt. This one I found interesting because they titled it, Our 7 Biggest Takeaways After 3 Hours with Rise of the Ronin. Team Ninja is stepping out of its comfort zone with Rise of the Ronin in several key ways, which, on top of being billed as a much more approachable experience than the likes of Nioh and Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, is also the studio's first crack at an open-world setting. But how exactly is it faring with those significant changes? After having played the game's opening sequences, we're starting to get a clear idea of how it's shaping up. So to that end, here we're going to talk about the 7 biggest takeaways after 3 hours with Rise of the Ronin. The first is strong setting. They say one of several areas where Rise of the Ronin is looking to do things a little differently than Team Ninja games have done in the past. Its setting is much more grounded and an authentic one, with fantastical elements not having been part of the equation so far at all. And so far, I've been impressed with what I've seen. Virtual historical tourism done right can elevate a game's setting in several ways, and the first few hours of Rise of the Ronin suggest that's the road it's headed down. It takes a while to get going. The first hour or so is fairly guided. That begins with a tutorial and then puts you in a linear section set inside a ship, but it doesn't take long for things to click once you enter the open world. How the game executes the open world itself is, of course, a different question. More on that in a bit. But in the early hours, the aesthetic of Rise of the Ronin setting, has been one of the stronger elements. Once I entered the open world, I spent more time in the countryside and its rural, I can't say that word, less developed environments. But what really caught my eye was the city of Yokohama, which you enter pretty early in this game. It's a blend of feudal Japanese and Western industrial aesthetics, is giving the city a very strong and distinct identity so far, and I'm excited to see where the rest of the map fares in this aspect. So that's the first key takeaway. They seem to be pretty impressed with the actual setting, and they're saying it is grounded with no fantastical elements. So that's good. And I'm looking over here, and we have Corey, the legend Landiga, making his presence known once again. The legend returns to do some heavy lifting. He's the second one today to drop a 10 bomb. Hellbound was the first. Corey follows it up with a 10 bomb. And not only that, but we just passed 25 members. We crushed our goal.
Holy shit.
You guys did it. Corey, thank you so much, man. And as promised, at the end of this stream, I will bring Boss in and we will give him his snacks. Make sure you remind me if I forget. I did promise you guys that, okay? I just want to make sure I stay on topic. So I'm going to update the member goal. And Corey, thank you once again, man. Appreciate all the support that you guys continue to show the channel. Even during times like this, obviously things are very, very, very slow for, I mean, I would say gaming in general in terms of news, but certainly with PlayStation, things are quiet on the news front. Why can't I find the member goal? So what did I say? We're at 26 members. And all right, so there we are. Crushing the first goal of the day. Thank you guys for that. So yeah, the first standout aspect of Rise of the Ronin, according to Gaming Bolt, with their 3 hours of the game, is they believe the setting so far is a very strong one. Now, the second standout is inconsistent open world. They say, as mentioned earlier, Rise of the Ronin is Team Ninja's first open world game, and based on what I've seen in the 3 hours I've spent with it so far, you can definitely tell that in more ways than one. Structurally, from what I've gathered so far, it doesn't place too many restrictions on you, and it largely leaves you free to explore, but holy shit. Sorry. I don't know if that came through. For some reason, on some of these websites, like, the ads are supposed to be muted, and then they will just suddenly play on their own. Just scared the shit out of me. Sorry about that. It says, but the actual activities of the world so far haven't done much to stand out in any real way. While several areas of the world also don't feel nearly as alive as they should, the city of Yokohama, for instance, has plenty of gorgeous environments. But in the time I've spent with the game so far, it hasn't felt as bustling, busy, or loud as I hoped it would. The couple of side quests I've seen have had very little narrative weight to them, and their structure and core conceits have felt rote at best. It's an interesting way to put that. Meanwhile, side activities outside of side quests have ranged from clearing out enemies from small settlements that they've occupied to finding and petting cats. See that right there? I mean, that's a selling point. To visiting landmarks scattered throughout the city of Yokohama. Thanks to the strong visual aesthetic of the game and the fun traversal mechanics, I've still enjoyed exploring the world, but I'm hoping that side activities will become more varied and unique as the game continues to open up. So far, they felt very by the numbers. So the second standout here is not necessarily a good one. Where they're saying that they've done a couple of side things and they noticed that the world doesn't seem as lively as they had thought it would, and they're a little bit nervous about how meaningful some of the side content is going to be. So this could end up maybe being a more negative point towards, we had this conversation yesterday when talking about open worlds, but hey, for me, you can pet cats. Like, you collect cats and pet them. So it's like, I'll be honest, I don't know that anything else matters at that point. Just being real. Illegal Monkey, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying, make a note to check out Enotria. Sorry, the last song. I couldn't read that for some reason. I don't even know if I said that right. Enotria, the last song, Souls-like, based on Italian lore. Gameplay and visuals look amazing. Was set to come out June 21st, but that's Erdtree DLC day. So new date to be announced. That's crazy that it's a new Souls-like, and it happened to have a release date that fell on the same day that the Erdtree DLC comes out. I'll have to look into this. Yeah, so Illegal Monkey, I will try to take note of this right now to look this up. At the very least, I'll try to come back to your super chat in the members lounge, because I did tell you in the members lounge today we're going to be reacting to some video game trailers, and I haven't heard of this game. So, Souls-like based on Italian lore sounds fascinating. I'll try to look it up in the members lounge and watch the trailer for it. So thank you for that, Illegal Monkey. And sorry if I absolutely destroyed the pronunciation of that game. You guys know me by now. You already know what to expect. All right, so we have the third key takeaway for Rise of the Ronin: fun traversal. Traversal. God, I don't know what's happening to me anymore. I struggle to say the word traversal. I don't know why. I never had trouble saying that word, but now I just do all of a sudden. Anyway, Rise of the Ronin's traversal mechanics have looked like one of its biggest highlights in all that we've seen of its pre-launch. So it's not surprising that it's also been one of my bigger takeaways after 3 hours with the game. The star of the show is, of course, the flying device known as the avicula. This is why I don't read articles like this, man, because there's always these words, I just don't know how to say them. But I didn't actually unlock that until the very final mission of the section I played up to this point. The bulk of my time has been spent running around, galloping on my horse, which is unlocked pretty soon after you first enter the open world, and using my grappling hook. And even that loop in and of itself has made for a lot of fun traversal movements. Movements feel very quick and responsive, and grappling to a rooftop and jumping from one building to the next has a great feel to it. Meanwhile, the avicula, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I feel like I'm not. It's going to bother me. From what little I've used so far, controls very well, and given how easy it is to transition from gliding to jumping onto horseback, I imagine I'm going to be using it a lot, and having fun while doing so. So, yeah, this is something that we did see in the trailers and some of the gameplay for Rise of the Ronin. I'm just going to call it the glider. I'm not calling it whatever the hell it's named. I'm calling it a glider. But yeah, we've seen the main character using this glider to just glide over the city and, basically fly around. Yeah, the flying thingy. That's what we'll call it. There you go. Even better. Even better than calling it the glider. And according to this person, they didn't have much time with it. They said it was basically the last thing that they unlocked before their time with the game was done, but that it was actually very fun. And just in general, he is saying that the traversal in Rise of the Ronin is generally pretty good. So that to me is also important, because one thing I didn't talk to you guys about yesterday is when we talk about open worlds, right? And we talk about how big they are and how wide open they are. I mean, how you handle traversal is a key factor to how fun or mundane the game can end up feeling. So all right, so the fourth thing here is fun combat. They say this shouldn't come as a surprise. Combat has been Team Ninja's bread and butter for as long as anyone can remember, and Rise of the Ronin puts its best foot forward in this area right off the bat. Again, I'm still very early in the game, which means many of the combat mechanics haven't fully opened up yet, but it's already been a blast. In true Team Ninja fashion, every hit feels crunchy and impactful, thanks in no small part to the considerable gore. So there is a pretty large gore factor. The enemies move and attack in ways that constantly keep you on your toes, and the many, many different weapons feel great to use. Though not nearly as challenging as something like Neo, especially with the addition of multiple difficulty options, Rise of the Ronin can still be a challenging game if you're not paying attention. Combat has been very parry-focused to this point, which means keeping a close eye on enemy movements, watching out for incoming attacks, and correctly timing your parries to stagger enemies and strike them when you're weak. I think they meant to say when they're weak, is going to be key to success in combat. Stealth has been much less impressive. The mechanics have been rudimentary so far, and enemy AI isn't the best in this area. But when the combat is in full flow, even in these early hours, it's hard not to be captivated. During certain missions, you'll also be accompanied by an AI companion that you can even swap into and play as, which has also added an interesting dynamic to encounters. So Yeah, not surprising to hear that one of the standouts is the combat. Um, Again, to me, I'm finding it very interesting because I guess I just didn't pay attention to this. I didn't realize that a key component of Rise of the Ronin is parrying. There's a intense parrying system that it does sound like you're not going to be able to really progress in the game unless you learn to parry. And so we'll see how I respond to that. It's not, listen, it's not that I refuse to play Sekiro. I know it comes off that way. Maybe one day I'll get to it. I'm not closing the door. Like Sekiro, yes, it's very much, it sounds very much like Sekiro. Maybe Rise of the Ronin can be my segue into it. What about that? Maybe Rise of the Ronin isn't necessarily as challenging. I get accustomed to it, the whole parry system, and then I'm like, okay, I'm ready to take it to the next level. All right. I think we're on the 5th point now. Nuanced progression. Again, this should come as no surprise given how in-depth and multi-layered the progression mechanics have been in Team Ninja's games in recent years. Rise of the Ronin is putting a great deal of emphasis on role-playing mechanics and build variety, and it's going to do so in a number of ways. For starters, you'll be selecting a class at the outset of your character that will determine whether you want to start off with bonuses in combat, charisma, and the like, and which weapons you will be more proficient with. Karma and XP gains count toward unlocking skill points, as well as variants of skill points that are used exclusively on unlocking and upgrading on intelligence, strength, and charisma skills, like being able to intimidate enemies or gaining the ability to stealthily assassinate 2 enemies in quick succession. Beyond that, there's also plenty of loot to keep an eye on, which means optimizing your build with the best possible equipment is crucial, while you're also choosing which combat styles to equip with different weapons. All of this is just from the 3 hours that I played, so I'm definitely excited to see how the game builds on these already deep foundations. So, yeah, it sounds like, again, it's Team Ninja leaning into what is traditionally, as they say here, their bread and butter. It's going to be great combat with a deep layered, not just a skill tree, but just deep layers of progression. The 6th point here is weak storytelling. So they say here, it's clear right off the bat that Rise of the Ronin is going for a more story-driven approach than past Team Ninja games, but so far, I'm not convinced it's doing a particularly good job in this area. The writing has often been clunky, and the voice acting can feel a bit flat. The protagonist, in fact, is barely voiced at all, and though they do have their own backstory and motivations, they don't really feel like they're a meaningful part of the story in any real way, thanks to the almost complete lack of actual interactions with anyone else in the world. I am, to be fair, intrigued by the larger zoomed out plot of the game. Elements like the westernization of Japan and the internal political and cultural strife the nation is facing in this period have shown some promise in my time with the game up to this point. But Rise of the Ronin is also trying to tell a more personal story of its protagonist, trying to look for their blade twin. And that just isn't grabbing me. I hope the game can change my mind. It has shown some promise with its choice and consequence mechanics. They've been pretty light so far, but I've been able to build stronger bonds with not only the characters that you meet, but with the entire regions of the map through completion of side activities. And I think there's some potential for solid storytelling there. So again, another kind of weak point being pointed out here for Rise of the Ronin in this preview. According to this person, they are not feeling too good about the story. I don't know how I feel about that, because when I think about Rise of the Ronin, I'll be honest, the story is definitely not what's making me like, this is the number one reason I'm looking forward to playing this game. It is the gameplay. It is that aspect of it that's definitely roping me in. And I guess for me with the story, all I'm going to be looking for in Rise of the Ronin is it serviceable? Is it just fine? If it can just be that and the combat is like amazing, then then I'm cool with that. If the gameplay is amazing and the story's just fine, that's good for me. Hopefully the story won't just straight up be bad. It doesn't sound like it's going to be bad, but the biggest problem this person seems to have is that they are trying to tell a story with the protagonist, like trying to get you to care about this character's motivations, but at least for this person, it's not really clicking. You're saying that's Team Ninja for you? And the final point here is technical issues. The extreme polish that AAA games so often obsess over and spend ridiculous amounts of money trying to chase is beginning to look increasingly excessive by the day. So personally, my expectation for games have lowered in this area of late. Even so, Rise of the Ronin is often falling below those expectations. I do still think that this is a good-looking game, but that's largely down to its strong art design and aesthetic. Purely in technical terms, I've noticed a few rough edges. I've seen a number of character models and faces that were lacking in detail, especially for the less important NPCs. Textures are often muddy and can take a couple of seconds to load in. Draw distances can look quite hazy. I've played exclusively on performance mode so far, though, and the 60 FPS gameplay has been buttery smooth, so there is that. So there you go. That is the write-up from Gaming Bolt when it comes to the previews, and they end it by basically saying that there are some technical issues. Now, I am a little bit worried about this, to be honest. If there's one area I could see this game maybe running into some trouble, I mean, putting the story aside, it is if it has pretty standout technical issues. To me, it sounds more like they're saying it's just from a visual standpoint where it's like, yeah, the assets aren't looking that great. I mean, I've already told you guys before that to me, this game basically looks last generation, and that is weak. That is something that I feel like I do have to call out where it's like, look, Sony, if you're going to market this as a big AAA $70 PlayStation 5 exclusive, you probably should have put some more pressure on Team Ninja, honestly, to try to at the very least, try to make this game look not so last gen. So from that point, it definitely is lacking. But as I've said many times before, gameplay is king. And so that's definitely something that, I think might take away from the game a little bit. But I think if the gameplay is as good as I'm thinking it will be, it'll make up for it. Hopefully, anyway. All right. So the very last thing I want to talk to you guys about with Rise of the Ronin before we move on to the final topic is just the actual PlayStation blog write-up. They say here, and this is actually written by the project manager at Sony Interactive Entertainment, Team Ninja has become synonymous with best-in-class action gameplay. From Ninja Gaiden to Nioh 2, the fundamental act of swinging a sword or spear or any number of deadly weapons is reliably complex and satisfying, often with a challenging yet rewarding learning curve. That Rise of the Ronin carries on this tradition is hardly a surprise, but their latest work on PlayStation 5 offers so much more than satisfying combat. Team Ninja jumped katana first into the crowded open world space and delivers something uniquely compelling. I had a chance to play the game's opening hours, and am excited to share details about the eclectic sights, sounds, combat, and traversal. So this is not necessarily it is pretty in-depth, but I want to actually skip to the section specifically because, obviously we've talked about the open world and all this stuff. I just want to skip to the section that talks about the combat just to cover this part of the blog. They say, for those familiar with Team Ninja's recent run of modern action classics, Rise of the Ronin places a much greater emphasis on the duel itself. The game achieves this by prioritizing parries called counter sparks that drain your enemy's Kai or stamina. It's either Ki or Kai, which in turn makes them vulnerable to gruesome critical hits. Optimal play seems to emphasize staying within striking distance and timing your opponent's attack to counter rather than the attack and dodge routine typical in these types of games. The combination of metal-on-metal clangs and bright sparks flying gives these duels a very cinematic feel, as does the speed with which you can slay your foes following successful counter sparks. Critical hits are varied and brutal, replete with detached limbs and massive blood sprays, making counter sparks worth the significant risk to pull off. Ah, yes. As we know, there is great satisfaction to be found in decapitating and cutting off limbs and causing giant blood sprays. It's just so funny to me the way it's kind of worded. Like, doesn't that get you guys excited? It's like, hell yeah, it does. I mean, it kind of does. I don't mean to be so, so savage, but it's a game, So it says here are the additional gameplay details that stuck out to me. Gruesome stealth kills and critical kills will terrify your opponent's companions, thus lowering their Kai is what I'm going to say it, and making them easier to dispatch. In a similar way, slaying the more resilient enemy leaders first will lower the Kai of their weaker henchmen. The second bullet point says the grappling hook can be used to hurl explosive barrels and other hazards into your opponents, as well as pull archers down from irritating vantage points, among other uses. Now, that to me is actually very important because I know that in games like this, the archers, is that how you're reading it? Is Ki? It's Ki. How would you pronounce that? Ki or Kai? I'm thinking Ki. But anyway, I like the fact that you will be able to use your grappling hook to bring archers down to your level because, man, these games always have archers and they're always freaking annoying. So, this sounds like a pretty good way to take care of them. They say here, parrying incoming bullets sets your sword aflame, giving your attack a temporary damage boost. So, confirmation, Raiden mode here, you can block bullets with your sword somehow. And not only that, it will light your sword on fire and you get to mess people up. So, I like it. It's very video gamey and I'm looking forward to doing that. Next up, they say Rise of the Ronin affords the player a ton of flexibility in how they approach combat encounters, whether you want to whittle down the horde by landing headshots from afar, or first prey on vulnerable sentries with stealth strikes. You can even carry out surprise attacks while gliding overhead. So we are getting confirmation that you can actually pull off some type of attack or multiple attacks while you're using your glider. So pretty cool. On certain missions, you're able to bring along companions with whom you've established bonds. While they will, of course, attack on their own, you can take control of those characters as you wish. They say here, I also got to experience two of the game's combat styles, movesets for each weapon that unlock and evolve as you progress through the game, and there appear to be dozens to discover. Each combat style holds advantages and disadvantages against certain weapons, and you can swap them on the fly to give you a leg up against your foes. Finally, it's worth noting that the game's strength, dexterity, intelligence, and skill trees can also unlock new dialogue options. In one instance, I was able to intimidate a group of pesky officials before initiating a brawl, consequently lowering their key gauges at the start of the fight. So, yeah, I just wanted to read that section of the write-up on the PlayStation blog about Rise of the Ronin. And again, my key takeaways here from the previews that I've read is that this game is it's turning out to be exactly what I thought it would be, which is the thing that's going to, I would say, be the difference maker and whether you're going to love this game or not, whether you're going to actually be into this game or not. It's going to ultimately be the combat and the gameplay. The combat more than anything. Let me see. Jay Shako, it's all right, man. You didn't have to time him out. I think he's just voicing his opinion. Big Shaq says we as consumers should want more from our $70 games. I won't support it until they fix the graphics. If games have bad visuals, then they should be charged at $30. It's only fair. Well, I mean, I get where you're coming from. But I will say that if you're going to charge $70 for a game like that, again, this is why I think it's fair to criticize Rise of the Ronin, where regardless of how good the gameplay is, they are asking for $70, and it's not a cross-gen game. So yeah, I do think it's fair to to basically say, I don't know if it's going to be worth it. But at the end of the day, for me, if the gameplay is phenomenal, and it sounds like the combat here is really good, if the gameplay is phenomenal and it just keeps me wanting to come back and play it, but the visuals are lacking, that can still be worth $70 for me, right? It just really comes down to like, how good is that gameplay? Like, is the gameplay good enough to justify a $70 purchase? Now, obviously with Rise of the Ronin, I won't know until I play it, but it is what I'm expecting. It's not like we saw from the reveal trailer what this game looked like. So I knew from day one that this is not going to be the best looking game in the world. It might even be lacking. But something about this world and the gameplay and the combat looks very enticing to me. And so I'll let you guys know. And when I play it myself, if I feel it's not worth $70 or I'm not enjoying it or something, I'll definitely report that to you. But right now, it is looking pretty solid to me. So, excuse me. But there you go. I wanted to be sure to cover the Rise of the Ronin previews. I wanted to cover them somewhat extensively. This is something I want to try to start doing more so on the channel. I feel like a lot of times I just kind of breeze past this, but I think that, a lot of people were really curious. What are the people who spent time playing Rise of the Ronin? What are they saying? And it's worth noting that I've just covered a select few, right? I just covered VGC, Gaming Bolt, and the actual PlayStation blog, but there are plenty of other videos out there and other write-ups from other outlets. And I would recommend, this is what I'm going to do, and I would also recommend this to you to, sample more of them and see the different opinions. But generally speaking, they all seem to be kind of saying, they all seem to be kind of focused on the same thing, where it's like, okay, what's the standout of this game? What is the best aspect of it? And it's the gameplay, the combat, and the progression. Everything else, maybe a little bit more questionable. And the traversal sounds really fun too. So there you go. We're going to move on to the final topic. We're going to cover the final topic, which talks about Final Fantasy. After that, I'm going to do a reaction to this video that you guys sent me, where apparently there's some interviews in there that weren't being reported on. It's a 16-minute video. And then I will give Boss his treats, and then we will move over to the members lounge. So do me a favor, guys. We're sitting at about 150 likes. If you could do me a favor, hit that like button for me. Let's see if we can get to 175 likes. By the way, I did mean to ask you guys before I move on to the final topic, are we experiencing hitches and freezes on screen? Is that happening? Frequently? Because I'm seeing it on my end a little bit, but I just need to make sure that everything's running smoothly. You're saying, wait, no reps? If we hit 50 members, I'll do some reps too. 25 members, snacks for Boss. 50 members, we'll do some reps. Mostly everybody's saying it's good. Hellbound saying sometimes. Okay, as long as it's not like frequently. Jake Skew, you're saying play the new Dead by Daylight chapter. Did that come out today? Yeah, I think it actually looks really good. The new Dead by Daylight chapter. The new killer that they released looks genuinely terrifying, and I love that. I like when they lean into the more horror aspect. Mrs. MBG loves that as well. And the new character, I don't know her name, but she's like a goth character. Mrs. MBG's really into that too. So I'll probably give that a try sometime tonight. And we have the legend. Corey Landiga comes in and drops another 10 bomb for you guys. Corey clearly wants us to get to that goal so we can get some reps in. He drops another 10 memberships onto this community, guys. I want to see some W's flowing in the chat for Corey. He's doing some heavy lifting today.
Holy shit.
Heavy lifting for the community. Well, okay, that was weird.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Corey, for you, because I know... By the way, Corey, is Metal Gear Solid your favorite game series? What is your favorite game series? Because I know you're really into Metal Gear. That I know. Obviously, you're in the God of War because your profile picture. But you're always so hyped for that Metal Gear theme. And Hellbound 1981 follows Corey up with another 5-bomb of his own. Hellbound and Corey are doing some seriously heavy lifting today. They both just dropped 15 membership gifts. That just brought us up to 41 members. Hellbound, thank you so much, man. Thank you guys for all of the support that you continue to show the channel and the community. I wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for that support. It's incredible to see, as always. And we have Tim Malcolm. Let me actually fix this first. Not fix it, but update it. So yeah, we are now 9 memberships away from hitting a second goal here, thanks to these guys. Sorry, I didn't mean to spam it so much here. I apologize. I know that must get very annoying. And dude, Corey drops another 5-bomb for you guys. Corey is doing it today. Corey and Hellbound, they're tag teaming it. They're getting us to the goal. He says, for the boss. For the boss. Corey drops another 5 gifts for you guys. Just a reminder to everybody here, if you were gifted a membership during the stream, you will now have access to the Members Lounge. We will be doing a Members Lounge episode after this stream. So give a big thanks to Corey, to Hellbound. I think Matt Fu dropped some earlier. So yeah, and Titus as well. Give a thank you to these guys. And just like that, Hellbound 1981 takes it home. He takes it home. He drops another 5 gifts for you guys, crossing the 50 mark. We are now sitting at 51 memberships. So at the end of the stream, not only do I owe Boss some snacks, which I'm sure he's going to be excited about, but I owe you guys some reps as well. Now, the only question that's left to be answered is when we do that. Are we doing the Metal Gear theme? Are we doing some metal tracks? What are we doing? You could think about that. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to update that goal. And we will move on to the final topic. And I have to read that milestone chat. So bear with me here one moment. There we go. Okay, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Thank you for all the support. We have Tim Malcolm, a member for 8 months. He says, do you think releasing Rise of the Ronin on the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2 could hurt its sales? It seems like Dragon's Dogma 2 will review very well. This is actually a good question, and I'm glad you brought this up because I actually didn't mention this. To answer very simply, yes, I do. I think that Rise of the Ronin, unfortunately, is going to suffer a bit because it's releasing the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2. These are 2 $70 games. And you're right. Right now, it does seem like Dragon's Dogma 2 is on track to review better, maybe even significantly better than Rise of the Ronin, because I did read and listen to some of the previews of Dragon's Dogma 2. And I, as you can see here today, I'm reading some of the previews for Rise of the Ronin, and the difference is not like huge, but the biggest difference I'm noticing is there were a lot less negatives for Dragon's Dogma 2. In fact, the only real negative that I was hearing or like reading about or seeing people bring up is the performance of Dragon's Dogma 2 on console. The fact that it's going to be around 30 FPS, but outside of that, people are saying that, like, dude, Dragon's Dogma 2 is incredible. Again, what really kind of caught me off guard is I saw people saying that after spending some time with Dragon's Dogma 2, they feel as though it's actually maybe better than Elden Ring. And that to me is like, whoa, okay. This game could review really, really well. I saw others saying that this might be like one of the games of the generation. So I do feel sorry for Rise of the Ronin in that it has to compete with that, because even for me, I have to admit, this is a tough one. This is tough. Like, Rise of the Ronin is a game that I've been looking forward to since the day it was announced, but Dragon's Dogma 2 looks amazing as well. And because I'm still very, very early in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I have to decide which one of these games am I playing first. Now, for the sake of coverage on my channel, and also because I am expecting to enjoy it, I am going to go with Rise of the Ronin. But it is going to be difficult to, it's going to be difficult just knowing, man, I really would like to play Dragon's Dogma as well. But the good thing is, it's not going anywhere. So, at least for me, I'm not that worried about it. But yeah, in terms of sales, I'm a little bit worried about Rise of the Ronin going up against Dragon's Dogma 2, because I think for a lot of people on PlayStation, they are going to be making that decision where it's one or the other. So we'll see, though, man. We'll see. I think the big fear is hopefully Rise of the Ronin doesn't flop. I don't think it's going to flop, but you're saying they're completely different games, though. They are, but I still think they're like similar enough in that they're both big AAA titles that, that there is, of course, like they're very different combat wise, but I don't know. When I just think about both these games, I'm like, well, you're going to be killing shit with swords and stuff, like on the most basic level, So in some ways, I think people are kind of viewing them in a similar light, but yeah, genre-wise, they are very different. Rise of the Ronin is definitely leaning more towards a more cinematic game with a story that has some pretty deep mechanics that you would expect from Team Ninja, to whereas Dragon's Dogma 2 is very much leaning into the high fantasy. There's magic and mages and all that stuff. And it looks great, though, man. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. It's a good question, Tim. All right, we're going to move on to the final topic here, which talks about the next Final Fantasy game. We have a write-up here from Eurogamer where the title reads, Final Fantasy's Naoki Yoshida keen to direct another major title. Naoki Yoshida is keen to direct another major title for Square Enix. Yoshida led development on Final Fantasy XVI on top of his work as producer and director for MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV, which will receive its next expansion, Dawn Trail, later this year. Yet, despite all that work, he told Famitsu he would like to direct a next major title, is what it says in quotes. It's completely undecided as of now, but if the opportunity arises to work on the next major title, I would like to direct it myself, he said. Yoshida considered adding one more title to his name, but then decided against setting a ceiling for himself. If I were to fall into this trap of thinking I can only do one more title, then it might be marked as something odd, like Yoshida's masterpiece, which isn't a good look, he said. For example, I'm in my 50s right now and still snowboarding, and the more I snowboard, the better I become. I honestly think I'm at my peak at the moment. No joke. I feel like I can still push even further. So in lieu of that, I haven't set a cap for myself. I love that attitude. I hope I'm like that when I'm in my 50s. I love that attitude of like, I'm in my 50s and I'm peaking, bro. I'm at my peak. He added, we don't know what the future holds, so why not challenge ourselves each time? I think that's definitely a better way to look at it. I hope I can take even greater leaps to the likes I have not ever imagined. Previously, in an interview with Sony's Shuhei Yoshida, he said Final Fantasy XVII should be directed by someone new. Instead of having the same old guys handle the next one, it seems though he's still interested in taking on the challenge himself. Further, Yoshida has spoken to Game Informer about the forthcoming DLC for Final Fantasy XVI named The Rising Tide. It's unlikely there will be more DLC for Final Fantasy XVI after this, as Yoshida is keen to move on to the next project, but the door remains open. My honest answer is I don't know at the moment, but at the same time, the possibility isn't entirely zero, said Yoshida when asked about more DLC. I don't want to bar out any real possibilities at this time. The reason being is that we did spend a lot of effort and time creating this game, and we put a lot of cutting-edge technology into this game. And because of that, we were able to gain a lot of experience, a lot of learnings that we can possibly apply to our next project or title. So my honest feeling is that the team does want to take on a new challenge and move on to a different project. Maybe it's a completely new game, perhaps in a completely new form of entertainment. I feel ultimately that might be the best route for not just the players, but for us as well, too. But again, to reiterate, the possibility of more DLC for Final Fantasy XVI is not zero. While the ending of the game will remain unchanged, Yoshida said players will get a deeper understanding of how the world of Vestia, I always struggle to say that, oh my God, Valisthea, there we go, I'm sorry, is, oh man, is how the characters are in Final Fantasy XVI. And what about the expected icon battle against Leviathan? One thing I can say is that there's going to be a lot of water involved. Visually, graphically, there's going to be a lot of attacks made from Leviathan, and that comes with a lot of water, said DLC director Takio Kujiroka. It's going to look really different from the past icon battles, and that's one thing that players can look forward to. Yeah, this I wanted to just report to you guys because, we've been talking a lot about Final Fantasy. There's been a lot of conversations about Final Fantasy 16 versus Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. And, we still have this last Final Fantasy 16 DLC coming. But to me, what stands out here is that we previously talked about, as this article mentions, that when it comes to Final Fantasy 17, which, to be honest, is many years away. I don't think Final Fantasy 17 is coming anytime soon. Final Fantasy 17 will likely be like a mid-gen PlayStation 6 game or something like that. But they are obviously thinking about what's next, right? And the director of Final Fantasy 16, Naoki Yoshida, says, he did say, I should say, that maybe a younger generation should take control of it. And it's interesting because when I reported this to you guys, a lot of the feedback I saw in my comment section were people being like, oh no, please no. Like, younger generation, we know what that means, right? That's going to be bad for Final Fantasy. We really don't want that. And I almost wonder if after he made this comment, if he kind of saw how the internet as a whole reacted to it, and maybe it wasn't just isolated to my own comment section. Maybe in general, a lot of people were like, no, please don't do that. Like, make it for as long as you can. We like what you're doing. You're doing a great job. And that's how I feel. So the fact that he's coming out here and saying that he would like to direct the next Final Fantasy, the next big title, I mean, that's what it would be, right? Final Fantasy 17. This, I think, is a good idea. And I hope that he does. I hope that Naoki Yoshida does end up directing Final Fantasy 17, because Final Fantasy 16, well, again, it's not like a perfect game. It does a lot of things really, 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 really well. And it's funny because I was reading what some people were saying about this, and one of the top replies was somebody saying, hey, this is great, but please figure out how you're going to do side quests, because some of the side quests in Final Fantasy 16 were super weak. Like, they were like borderline, like almost a joke. I think the reply I read, they made it, I don't even know if it was a joke. Like, I'm actually trying to remember if this was in the game. I'm assuming it was a joke, but they were like, the side quests are basically like, hey, Clive, can you like deliver these 2 sandwiches to my friend over there? Thanks, bro. It's like, yeah, there was a lot of that stuff. And I've told you guys when I was reviewing Final Fantasy 16 that the side quests were by far the weakest part of the game, but not all of them, right? Like, there were side quests in Final Fantasy 16 that when you saw them through all the way to the end with some of these characters, it was very rewarding. But it's just, there felt like there was a little bit too much filler and padding there with some of the side quests where it's like, I really don't think you guys needed all this, because it just isn't that satisfying. But Final Fantasy 16 as a whole was a phenomenal game. I see Wild Wolf is saying that Final Fantasy 16 is so underrated. I do think it is a little bit underrated. I mean, it just feels like it wasn't talked about as much in a positive way as it should have been. And that bothers me a little bit because, I mean, so much of the conversation surrounding Final Fantasy 16 last year was about the sales and whether or not Square Enix made a bad move by making it a PS5 exclusive. And that to me just felt a little unfair because it's like, have you guys played this game? Like, I'm not saying it's that everybody has to come to the conclusion that this is a mind-blowing, insane game, but surely you see, like, this is kind of awesome, right? Like, are you seeing some of these boss battles? And it's fascinating because as I'm continuing to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I do find myself thinking a little bit more from time to time about my time playing Final Fantasy 16 and how, kind of how these two games are comparing to one another. And again, they both have their own strengths, but here's the question I want to ask is, hold on, here we go. Unintended Studios, you're saying, oh, I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Naoki Yoshida, not Naoki. Monthly correction. Well, thank you see, Unintended Studios, this one feels brutal. This one in particular feels brutal because I've been saying it this way for literally ever. For as long as I've been saying this man's name, I've been saying it Naoki. I'll be honest, something about it felt a little wrong. Like, I always kind of felt deep down like I have to be mispronouncing this, right? Just say Yoshi P. I'll say Yoshi P. That's his nickname, right? He said monthly corrections. Yeah, dude, listen, Unintended Studios, you should just start making a list of monthly corrections. This will help me. And, at some point during each month, just send that list. Jake Skull, I'm doing good, man. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, classic MBG. The question I was going to ask you guys, though, the question is, if Naoki, see, this is the whole thing now. Now I'm going to have to consciously think about Naoki Yoshida, Yoshi P. Just call him Yoshi P. That you messed me all up now on Nintendo Studios. If Yoshi P does direct Final Fantasy 17, then are we going to see them lean into the action-oriented gameplay once again? Or do you think that Final Fantasy 17 has a higher chance of kind of going back to its more RPG roots and being more of a hybrid or just being much more RPG driven? That's the big question, right? If I had to guess, I'm thinking they're going to go more so into the RPG side of it. I think it will still have a lot of action and it will have real-time combat, but I think they will try to lean more so into having more RPG elements. Because I do think, unfortunately, that did hurt Final Fantasy 16 a little bit. Just a little bit. You're saying the mini games have kind of destroyed the pacing for you, B. Flesher? I'm assuming you're talking about Rebirth. Live Japanese lesson by chat. Jake Skull, you're saying you're making a new video on Dead by Daylight for the new chapter. Good stuff, man. Yeah, we were just talking about that. I'm looking forward to it. You think it's going to launch day one on the Switch too? I think Final Fantasy 17 is going to be a PlayStation exclusive again. Like, I think Sony's going to lock that down as well. We have a generic white male, a member for 7 months. He says, thanks again, community, for keeping me as a member. Just got back to work, so I'm trying to get myself back on my feet. Well, you're welcome. Well, I guess I'll say you're welcome on behalf of the community. Yeah, thank you guys. A lot of people have been able to maintain their memberships through the gifting. And generic white male here saying that he's just getting back to work now, trying to get back on his feet. So good stuff. Good job, community. Good job keeping people worry free when it comes to their memberships. Good stuff, man. And I'm glad to hear you're enjoying the membership, generic white male. So I will also say on the topic of memberships, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I've really been trying to make a better effort with my titles and thumbnails for the members lounges, to make it clear like what we're talking about. The past 2 members lounge episodes, yeah, you'll probably notice that. So I hope you guys have been not necessarily appreciating that. I'm sure you appreciate it, but I guess I'm saying I hope it's been helping. So you're not going in so blind. But yeah, I just wanted to be sure to cover this topic briefly with you guys, letting you know that this is the latest update we have on the next Final Fantasy. Of course, you know, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just dropped, so I don't think anybody is sitting here being like, man, I can't wait for the next Final Fantasy. We have time, and it's going to be many years till we see what will end up being eventually Final Fantasy 17. In fact, I think there's a good chance we'll get the third part of Rebirth, or not Rebirth, of Remake, before we get Final Fantasy 17. But yeah, Yoshi P says he wants to direct it. So we'll see if Square lets him, and I'll keep you guys up to date with that. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We are going to watch and react to this video that you guys sent me. Let me bring it up. So the title of this video, by the way, is, well, hold on. Let me open this in a new tab. The title of this video is, Can the Sony PlayStation Remain the top-selling console? Just kind of doing this on the fly. And let me get the desktop audio good. And let's check this out. I just have to pop my chat out here and we'll be good. By the way, guys, do me a favor. Again, hit that like button if you haven't already. Really helps. Lets me know you enjoy the streams, and it helps with YouTube's algorithm. And let's...
From Spider-Man to God of War and Final Fantasy. It's been 30 years since the PlayStation first brought to life some of the most iconic video game franchises.
Whether it's coming from third-party partners that release stuff that is
Kevin Kenson,
exclusive to their platform, or their own first-party studios making stuff, the library has been the number one thing that really pushes the success of the systems.
For PlayStation, the game has always been, no pun intended, great content to a great console. And I think that that is where the exclusivity brings people and creates a loyalty and engagement that is really hard to replicate.
She gets it. She gets it.
During its pandemic-era rollout, the PlayStation 5 was nearly impossible to come by.
Hunting for a new PlayStation for Christmas or an Xbox Series 10? Good luck.
Sony's
Series
always
10.
done great hardware design, and it's one of our strengths.
Oh, here we go.
Points of difference.
The PlayStation 2 is the best-selling video game
an
console
Xbox Series
of all
10.
time, with nearly triple the sales of Sony's latest PlayStation 5. Annual gaming sales exceeded $24 billion for Sony in fiscal year 2022, which makes up over 30% of the company's overall revenue. The PlayStation Network, the company's online gaming platform, has 123 million active monthly users. For reference, that's about the same number of people who tuned in for the record-breaking Super Bowl 58.
Oh, wow.
If you include mobile, you include global, you put it all together, the video game industry is a $200 billion plus industry. It's bigger than music, it's bigger than movies. On a revenue basis, the largest entertainment sector in the world.
That's crazy to think that gaming is that big.
The Nintendo Home Entertainment System entered Japanese homes in 1984 before spreading internationally 2 years later. It utilized game cartridges that were inserted directly into the device, a standard for that decade's gaming consoles.
You mean you haven't played it yet? We can play it on my Nintendo Entertainment System.
In 1994, the PlayStation launched in Japan, which accelerated the gaming industry's shift away from cartridges.
Going over to a disc format was a big deal because of how much data could be stored on those discs versus what was, possible on cartridges at the time. And that was a large reason why a lot of third-party studios even moved over to PlayStation.
While competitors in the modern video game
PS1 is
Sony
pretty
and
much where I
Nintendo had
started.
privately signed an agreement in 1988 to jointly develop an optical disc game player. There were even 200 Nintendo PlayStation prototypes that were manufactured, but the relationship fell apart.
Oh, that's so crazy.
Just when we were about to announce the launch of this, Nintendo backed away and they ended up going with Philips for their optical disc format. And Sony was kind of left at the altar, standing here with this beautiful compact disc reader.
And so, the PlayStation was born. Sony's first foray into the video game space entered the US in a 1995 launch that was announced at the first Electronic Entertainment Expo, known as E3. Sega, one of Sony's biggest competitors at the time, also announced its US release of its Saturn console, with the price point of $399.
Before the launch, there was considerable uncertainty. We were moving into a space that had two pretty entrenched occupants, Nintendo and Sega.
The then president of Sony Computer Entertainment.
Yo, I just want to say real quick, it is so random to me that Jim Ryan is in this video. Like, I did think you guys were like referencing older stuff, but this seems like very recent, and this might literally be, I don't know, we still have the rest of March, but after March 31st, I believe, Jim Ryan is officially retired from Sony. So this could possibly be the very last time we hear from him, like while actually being at Sony. Just interesting. I do want to say really quick though, in watching this, the Sega Saturn launching up against the PlayStation 1, I just told you guys that the PS1 is really where I started. Like, I played the N64 a little bit, and when I was really, really young, I played a little bit of the NES, but I didn't really care about it, and I was too young to really understand. I just want to say, as somebody who had a PlayStation 1, and also, like, I remember other kids my age at the time, they had PS1s. I don't really recall the Sega Saturn, like, being a thing at all. Like, I know it was, like, clearly it was a thing, but I'm just saying, like, looking back to my childhood, I really don't recall ever even thinking about the Sega Saturn. Like, I may have like had a friend or two at that time that maybe had one, but all I remember was the PlayStation, man, and the N64. Like, the Sega Saturn just wasn't, I don't know, for me it just wasn't part of my life, like, to literally any extent. Maybe it was just overall lack of awareness. Omega/Buster, thank you for the super chat. You're saying Series 10 shows how Microsoft has a naming issue with Xbox. Yeah, that was pretty funny. That was like, it's funny because you could tell he read it as a Roman numeral. Like, that's even funnier to me. Xbox Series X, the guy reads it as a 10, It's like, I'm pretty sure the reason why he said that was because, well, the PS5, so that has to be the Series 10, right? But yeah, I think you are correct. The naming convention of the Xbox has not been the best. The 360 was a good name, but the One, I think that was a step back. And the Series, so not the greatest. It's okay. That's one thing I will say. It's so stupid maybe to think about, but I do like how simplistic the naming convention of the PlayStation has been, where it's PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, you just can't go wrong. You just can't.
Entertainment America took the E3 stage and made a short but significant announcement.
$299.
Dropping bombs, dude. Sony was dropping bombs way back then.
The price of the PlayStation launching in the US.
That was throwing the gauntlet down. It's like, PlayStation's not here to play. We're here to win, and we're going to come in $100 under all of you. But it just blew the doors off, and people thought, wow, Sony's not here to dip their toes in the water. They're jumping all in.
But there was no way that we could assume that we were going to be successful. And it was really not until the day of launch, we woke up that morning and we saw big queues outside retailers of excited people waiting to get their hands on their PlayStation, that we realized that we were probably onto something there.
The original PlayStation went on
This
to
footage
sell
is
over
awesome.
100 million units worldwide. Jim Ryan joined Sony in 1994, the same year that the PlayStation was born.
Jim's so
in
happy.
Japan. He is set to retire in March of 2024 after a 30-year tenure with the company.
I have hugely fond memories of the original PlayStation, and I'd never really played too many games before joining what was then Sony Computer Entertainment, putting CD discs to that thing and really experiencing Tekken, experiencing Ridge Racer, experiencing Resident Evil. Those were great days.
From the beginning, the company knew just being a tech company wasn't enough. You had to bring some secret sauce in for the entertainment world. And by doing a joint venture between Sony Music and Sony Electronics, I think that was the key to the early success of PlayStation.
Man,
PS2
both
was
Sean
released
Layden
in
and Jim
2000
Ryan,
and went on to become the best-selling
there
video game
since the
console of all
beginning during the
time,
PlayStation
selling
1 days.
a total of over 155 million consoles.
We went into markets where video gaming had never really been a thing. So, Southern Europe, for example, Italy and Spain, and places like the Middle East, we established a gaming culture where none had existed.
The PS2 also functioned as an affordable home entertainment system as it had a built-in DVD player.
Yep.
This helped some buyers justify the
Oh,
purchase
man.
as
Look
DVD
at that
sales
PS2.
reached $16.3
Beautiful.
billion and accounted
PS2
for more
was
than
such an
half
awesome
of the US
console.
home video market by 2005.
We put like The Matrix into a box with a PS2 that you don't like games, but you want to watch this movie. And DVD was a real accelerant for the PlayStation 2 adoption.
But this momentum came to a halt when Sony released the PlayStation 3 in 2006.
Our Icarus moment was when we launched the PlayStation 3. We created a huge hole in the bottom line
Icarus moment.
that we need to fill over time. The machine was
Like
incredibly
yeah.
expensive.
It's a good way to put it.
I just remember anecdotally getting that sticker shock when you guys announced the price of the PlayStation 3. Oh my God, who's gonna buy this? This is ridiculous. At the time, now today, that kind of a normal console price, I guess. Can you just talk a little bit about the challenges in that generation that you guys went through?
Yeah, I think if I had to kind of encapsulate PlayStation 3 generation, I think I'd sort of say that we got a bit carried away with the success that we'd been enjoying on PlayStation 2, and we kind of stumbled a little bit at the start of that generation, and the early days were difficult.
It was very, very powerful, but it was also very expensive, and it was, frankly,
Oh, Herman
hard to
Hulse
develop.
popping up.
We needed to work really hard with some amazing franchises.
The company
This is a
slashed
great
prices
video. How did I
multiple
miss
times for the
this?
PS3, but still lagged behind Microsoft's Xbox 360.
See, I just want to say this too really quick. I'm actually thoroughly enjoying this. Thank you, chat, for making me aware of this video's existence. Before continuing, I just want to say I find it pretty important to take note of the fact that, when was it? This was published 3 days ago. Sony, or at least the executives at PlayStation, talking about the PS3, right? And how, we messed up. And just that level of self-awareness that they're also willing to talk about, where it's like, we got too carried away with the success of the PlayStation 2. That, to me, is very important to highlight, because I've tried to talk about this previously and let people know it seems unlikely to me, although not impossible, but unlikely, that Sony is going to repeat that mistake regardless of how much competition they do or do not have in the console space going forward, because they have not forgotten that. It really kind of shook them to the core. And so, this is a really interesting video, though.
Windows Wii.
The company picked itself up, brushed itself off, came up with some of the most amazing games of the generation. Uncharted began on PS3, Killzone was on PS3, Resistance was on PS3, and knew that we had to win out by not being a computer in your living room, but by being a game machine in your house.
The 2013 launch of the PlayStation 4 proved to be the hit Sony needed after the slump in sales from its predecessor. It launched at a lower price than the PS3, and Sony saw its fastest start in console sales up to this point. In the years that followed, Sony went on to sell double the amount of PS4 consoles compared to the Xbox One.
I was playing a fair bit of FIFA back then because power of the PlayStation 4 allowed sports games, and in particular soccer, that as a European I'm crazy about, to become really realistic and really great gaming experience.
I think PlayStation's success is really.
I'm trying to imagine Jim playing FIFA on the PS4.
What they do best, which
do you think he's lying?
And in the industry, we always say.
Do you think he played it for 5 minutes and he's like, "I'll talk about that"?
There's this trend where gamers they spend more time in fewer blockbuster games. So what that means for us as game makers is we're making these benchmark titles, and they're big bets, they're big budgets.
You don't think he's lying, just a little awkward?
The PlayStation content library is composed of first-party and third-party developed games, meaning it's a mix of games created in-house at PlayStation Studios and by outside developers.
The PlayStation depended on third-party developers and publishers to bring content in. We built a platform, we built some software, but the majority of the opportunity was spread against Electronic Arts, Activision, Ubisoft, Namco, Capcom. Sony was happy not to be the biggest publisher on the platform as long as they could increase it. It wasn't about taking shares of the pie, it was about making the pie itself bigger. And I think that was a difference of approach that helped the company to be successful.
But
hold on. I just want to say something to you guys. Does anybody else find it kind of strange that we're seeing a lot of Shawn Layden suddenly? As Jim Ryan's getting ready to retire, we're seeing Shawn Layden being interviewed by CNBC talking about PlayStation. I'm seeing Shawn Layden popping up in all these different articles, basically making the rounds to all these different places talking about PlayStation. I don't know, man. It's interesting to me. You think it's just a coincidence? It's fascinating, I would say. Just the timing of it. Maybe it is a coincidence. Do I think he's returning? I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's impossible. I don't want to say I think it's unlikely, truthfully. Like, I do think it's unlikely that he's going to return. But he does have that, what you would call institutional knowledge about PlayStation. He was there for the most successful generation. He was in charge of PlayStation Studios and a lot of what PlayStation was doing during the PS4 generation. Yeah, that's true, Novinzer. You're saying he was on that What's Up PlayStation podcast. He said he's not coming back. Yeah, I did hear that. And he worded it in an interesting way where, in trying to read somebody's body language to really get, see if you could pick up on anything, I got the sense that, all right, here's how I'll put it. I think Shawn would like to still be at PlayStation. I do. I think he does want to be at PlayStation because he was there for pretty much his entire career, and he clearly loves gaming. He clearly loves PlayStation. The fact that he's still talking about it even now so passionately, and is so willing to talk about it, I think that shows that he clearly, genuinely likes the brand and the company. And I think that when I hear him say oh, you just you can't go back home, that chapter is closed. Yeah, I think it makes more sense that it's yeah, I miss those days and I would have liked to still be there, but maybe it is, it's 30 years career. He did end it on a high note. I mean, he left abruptly, of course, but it was ended on a high note. So it's yeah. The thing about the idea of Shawn Layden coming back now, I mean, PlayStation is in a position where they need somebody where it's listen, we are having some problems and we don't want them to get worse, so we need some solutions. Is Shawn Layden, after 30 years at PlayStation, leaving on a high note? Yeah, I think he's involved with Tencent as well. I just don't think he's going to come back. I just find the timing of it fascinating. Jim Ryan's about to retire, and he he's leaving on, I don't know if you would say Jim Ryan's leaving on a high note, but he's not leaving on the lowest note. Certainly not. And we're seeing him come out and talk in this CNBC documentary thing they're doing here, mini doc. And then Sean Layden's popping up. Maybe we're going to get the announcement of the next PlayStation CEO relatively soon. Anyway, let's finish this out.
That pie was taken off the table in 2023 when Microsoft completed its purchase of the video game giant Activision Blizzard.
Well, we were concerned about what the regulatory climate would be, but we never thought that there
they even
was
got
any,
Bobby Kotick on here.
Real reason that was legitimate why
oh wait, this is from
these
October.
two companies couldn't combine.
The big controversy is obviously Activision is a big producer of games, and the concern was that with Microsoft acquiring them, they would own pretty much what is left of independent big studios and not share the games over with
All right, Jay
PlayStation.
Skull, take care, man.
We had this
Thanks for tuning
interesting
in.
argument about Microsoft buying Activision and what that could mean for exclusives, what that could mean for cloud streaming. At the same time, Sony has done very similar things, buying studios to make them exclusive or making exclusive deals with companies like Square. In your view, why was the Activision deal wrong or bad for the industry?
Yeah, the reason that we felt this one was different to anything that had happened in the past was the sheer size and importance of the Call of Duty franchise. So we were absolutely thrilled to be able to negotiate a deal with Microsoft to ensure that that franchise remains available on PlayStation platforms for the next 10 years. And that was very important to us, and we're very happy to have done that deal.
But the timeline is a little different though, right? Because why didn't you agree to the deal when it was first offered? And instead you were part of the case with the FTC, a key witness for the FTC.
Yeah, you know, we're at risk of getting very granular here, but there are deals and deals. You know, a deal that was offered at a certain point of time may not have been the deal that was actually signed.
Microsoft's Activision acquisition was by far
Jim
the
in the
most
hot
expensive
seat
in
there.
industry history, and more than double Microsoft's second largest acquisition of its 2016 purchase of LinkedIn.
I see the consolidation in the industry. I see people like Microsoft or Embracer or some groups out of Saudi Arabia buying up a bunch of studios. And I see consolidation to be the enemy of creativity. If we've commoditized the product, you're just going to get more of the same.
But throughout its time in the gaming industry, Sony itself has also acquired more than a dozen game development studios, and many of these studios have gone on to produce some of its biggest hits. Insomniac Games was behind the PlayStation 5's record-breaking success with Spider-Man 2 in 2023. And now, the way these games are being played is also evolving.
The editing in this video is pretty good.
Over the past decade, Sony's game revenue has shifted overwhelmingly from physical discs to digital downloads. Both Xbox and PlayStation began introducing entirely disc-free consoles with the Xbox Series S and the PlayStation 5 in 2020. Both companies are also improving their ability for users to stream games directly from the cloud. Both Sony and Microsoft utilize in-house servers for streaming games.
For Microsoft, the advantage of doing that is that they own Azure, and you know, in that respect, obviously their cost to deliver that experience is going to be lower.
Microsoft controls 60 to 70% of the overall cloud gaming market. PlayStation Plus has about 8 million subscribers to its premium tier that allows users to stream from the cloud. That's about 17% of its users that pay for its subscription gaming service. However, right now, cloud gaming accounts for a small part of the overall gaming market. Cloud-enabled gaming generated just over $5 billion in revenue in 2022, which pales in comparison to the $35 billion in console game sales.
I've lost count of the number of times over very many years that people have said the era of the console is over. Cloud will emerge, and it will over time become a significant component of the way that people enjoy interactive entertainment, but it's not there yet.
Especially considering that the telecommunications infrastructure needed for smooth gameplay is just not strong enough in much of the world, including certain parts of the US.
The fact that there is a rural broadband initiative in the federal government indicates that rural broadband needs work.
This inequality in internet connectivity can also lead to delays in digital downloads, indicating the modern relevance of physical discs for both PlayStation and Xbox.
And oftentimes when people talk about things like console wars and exclusivity and that kind of thing, they really compare PlayStation and Xbox more directly. Nintendo doesn't get talked about in the same breath as often. I feel like people kind of just let Nintendo be its own thing.
Yet Nintendo's Switch is the second best-selling video game console of all time, behind the PS2.
I think that maybe the mobility aspect of it, and because it's a handheld, people think about it differently, almost more competing against a phone than not a console. But it is a console. If you think about what PlayStation has done now with a handheld that you can pair with your PS5 and be able to, move around the home, it kind of shows that they see Nintendo as a competitor.
Shortly before Christmas, we launched PlayStation Portal, which is a device that allows people to use our remote play functionality to enjoy PS5 gaming experiences in a handheld environment.
In more recent years, there has also been an increase in leveraging the iconic PlayStation content outside the gaming space.
I'm really pleased about the early successes of PlayStation Productions working with Sony Pictures. We've taken some of our best IP and converted that to movies, with Uncharted, to the TV format with The Last of Us.
I think what really impressed them was the fact that I didn't turn into a monster.
And Sony plans to keep increasing the intellectual property within its systems. By 2025, the company says it expects to be putting 50% of its investment into new IP. That compares to just 20% back in 2019.
It's an important piece to kind of cement that idea that games are part of pop culture now, and we reach broader audiences every time. Quality in the adaptations is just as important as the quality of the games that we make.
But the gaming industry is facing some headwinds. Thousands of jobs were cut in the gaming industry.
Yeah, that was kind of that was a pretty key piece of information that they just dropped there. By 2025, 50% of their investment is in new IP.
That day saying, we are at a stage where we need to step back and look at what our business needs. At the same time, our industry has experienced continuing
6 games
and
have been canceled.
Change, which affects how we all create.
It's in the name of new IP, Dark Horse.
I would say that it's really important never to forget that we are in the entertainment business. And that's what we do. That's our strength. I think that's why we've enjoyed some considerable success over the last 30 years. Never losing sight of that as a cornerstone.
Yeah, that was a that was a good video. Let me fix this here. That was a lot better than I expected it to be. I'm glad I listened to you guys. I'm glad you proved me wrong when I said there's no new Jim Ryan interview. I will say that there wasn't a whole lot from that felt like new information necessarily. But I will say that little ending tidbit there, that felt quite important. By 2025, 50% of Sony's total investment in gaming will be in new IP. Look, I don't mean to, be this way, but to me that seems to be a not so subtle hint and nudge that, yeah, we're going to have some pretty big announcements coming, right? So, yeah, interesting stuff, man. I think that video did a really good job just kind of highlighting. I will say, too, I want to give credit to the fact that it was a pretty short video, and it packed a lot of information. It was really well paced, really well edited. The interviews were good. They gave Jim Ryan at least one tough question there with the Activision Blizzard deal, and he had to handle it professionally. Or if you're saying no one knows about this video, yeah, well, I don't know. Hopefully, I brought a little bit more exposure to it with this stream, because even I didn't know about it. And yeah, maybe I'm gonna make a video tomorrow. I'm I'm going to highlight this. Yeah, not the entire video, but I'm at least going to highlight the part where they said that by 2025, 50% of our investment will be new IP. I feel like that should be a headline. I really feel like that should be a headline. You're saying 2030 is going to have some big announcements. Well, no. Listen, I think you might be misunderstanding. He's not saying that by 2025, that's when we're going to start investing in new IP. They've made these investments already. But it's basically saying that like by the time we hit 2025, Sony's total investment in new IP development would have increased. I think, what did they say? Was that like 19% or like 20% in 2019? What number did they say? In 2019, it was like a much lower percentage. So they've really kind of pumped it up here. Where is this? Do I have a link? It's on YouTube. It's on CNBC's official YouTube channel. Can the Sony PlayStation remain the top-selling console? So, yeah, good stuff. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We've covered all the topics. We reacted to the video. I'm going to... All right, yeah, I'm going to bring Boss in here. I'm going to give Boss the snacks that I owe him. I'm going to give you guys some reps, okay? And then we're going to move on to the Members Lounge. So just a reminder, you guys got us to 25 members. So we check off the box. That's Boss getting his snacks. Then you got us to 50 members. That means we're going to get some reps, all right? Irfan, you're saying we already knew that before, right? In an earnings call? Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. But I just think that it's something that I think everybody has forgotten. And to me, the reason why I feel like it should be a headline is because, in the midst of all this bad news, it should be a reminder that, all right, I'm bringing him in a minute. Oh, okay. Hold on, guys. Boss has entered. I was just saying it should serve as a good reminder that Sony is still very much invested in new IP, and they have new IP coming because they've gotten a ton of criticism for too many sequels, too many remakes, too many remasters, and I think that's why they highlighted that. Sinister, member for 1 month, says, "Hello, still relatively new here. Do you ever think they'll drop the prices for PlayStation Plus?" Well, Sinister, if you're talking about like an overall price cut, I don't think so. Unfortunately, I would not hold out hope for that. I would not anticipate that. As somebody is pointing out in the chat, Jakey Steve's pointing out that it's the only time you usually see price cuts is for Black Friday. Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't think so. All right, so let me get Boss his snacks. We'll go with the Temptations dairy flavor. Here you go, man. Oh, that's too much. And we'll do some reps as well. I think Corey said he wanted the Metal Gear theme, so that's what we'll go with. Let me spool that up. Where is it? Hold on. I can't tell if it's muted or not. Wait. Nope, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Sorry to keep you guys waiting here. Oh, okay. Okay. I know which one it is now. I have it mislabeled. That's why. Okay. I'll play it in just a minute. I'm going to get this set up. Yeah, so I did Portal, just to let you know, I did see that trailer. And I didn't want to play it on the stream because I don't want anything bad to happen. But I did see it, and we talked about it at the beginning of the stream. All right, here we go. We get this set up. I'm trying to decide if I should bring out the bench or not. Overhead tricep extensions. You know what? We probably could do that today. Use some overhead tricep extensions. Oh, hold on. Okay. we'll do a whole workout. No, we're not going to do a whole workout, but overhead tricep extensions. That's great. All right, boss, you're not going to be able to sit in front of the camera. These people are here to see some reps, man. Don't get in the way of the reps. You see, we have Idrisil. Oh my God. Idrisil joins Play Has No Limits. Re-ups. I don't even think you re-upped your membership. This looks like it's your first time becoming a member. Thank you so much, man. That says it brought us up to 53 members. I think we're actually 52. But Idrisil, thank you so much, man. Just in time too for some reps. All right, boss. You're gonna have to get out of the way of the camera, though, man. We're doing some reps. Okay. Say I should do a shoulder press. I could probably do a shoulder press. I'm using 30-pound dumbbells. I'm not gonna use the 50s right now. Not trying to go too hard. Gotta conserve some energy for the members lounge. It's the tree from Norse mythology. Thank you for reminding me. All right, here we go. Really quick, we have Kyle with a super chat. It says, MBG, you should start watching the latest trailer shown on PlayStation's YouTube in your members' live streams once a week. I found some cool indies. That is actually what I was thinking about doing. That's something we're going to be doing in the members lounge. We're going to be watching some new trailers. Not all of them. I don't know how many of them we're going to watch, but that's something I wanted to do with you guys. Boss, please, bro. You're going to break it. You're going to break it, boss. Boss is my baby. All right, let's get this started. I want to do the reps. Boss is going to get in the way of the reps, bro. He said, F your stream. Turn the camera off. All right. We'll get this started. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. Are you guys ready to see Boss work out now? If Boss was lifting, that would be too epic. Do overheads with the cat. Yeah, Boss, you're going to have to start working out, man. You are. You're eating too many snacks. Go ahead. I put the dumbbells right there for you, bro. No, I'm not going to try to do bicep curls with Boss in my hands. I'd probably accidentally hurt him. He's like, what? All right, where are we at? We're at the 2 hour and 45 minute mark. Let's see what else we can get spooled up here. We'll do one more. Let me see. It's good. Trying to get Boss involved. Dude, I saw somebody. Jakey Steve comes in and says, "What are we doing?" I'm just giving you guys some reps. I owe it to you since we crushed 50 members. Yeah, the overhead tricep extensions, I couldn't really get full range of motion because I got this sweater on, or this hoodie on. Hood got in the way. But Boss approves of the triple superset. Yeah, we're getting some arm work in today. Dude, my triceps, I could get a pump in my triceps so easily, man. Way easier than my biceps for some reason. Or my shoulders. Hey, you don't chew that. Come on. Well, there you go. Those reps were for you guys. Boss, please turn away. They don't need to see that. How many times do I have to tell you? That's right, MBG. Let me hear your breath heavy into the mic. Oh, man. I got to conserve my energy, though, because I have a proper workout I have to do later on. How many physical copies of PS5 games do I have? I don't know the exact amount. I have to count it. I don't know why it keeps freezing like that, but all right, guys. So this is where I think this is where we're going to conclude today's stream. We're at the 2 hour and 50-minute mark. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for all of your support. You guys made Boss happy today by gifting enough so he can get some treats. Got a little workout in, and we covered all the topics. I'd say a pretty timely manner. So not bad. Not bad. Boss, you really got to stop chewing the mic, bro. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to end this stream, and I'm going to go get the Members Lounge set up, okay? I think I'm going to strive for the Members Lounge to go live in like 10 minutes. Boss, I really don't like how aggressive you're getting with my microphone stand. Like, you're legitimately shaking the entire desk. Stop that. What is wrong with you, man? Can you guys see this? You guys see what he's doing? Hey. All right. You're mine. You're mine now, boss. All right, guys. That does it for today's stream. We covered the Spider-Man live service game leak. It's been canceled. The trailer leaked. We covered Rise of the Ronin previews. We covered the next Final Fantasy, possibly being directed by Yoshi P. We reacted to an interesting video with Jim Ryan in it, PlayStation, and then we finished it off with Boss and a nice workout. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had fun. Do me one favor as you're heading out. Please hit that like button. Lets me know you guys enjoy the streams. Helps the channel, obviously. And I want to give a big shout out to everybody who gifted memberships today. Huge day, 50 plus members. Really appreciate all that support. What we do here is fan funded. Excuse me. What me and Boss do here is fan funded. So without that direct support, wouldn't be able to make this happen. Also want to give a shout out to everybody who donated super chats. Thank you guys for that as well. And I want to make sure to give a thank you and a shout out to Devil Shooter. He does the timestamps. He does a great job. If you see him in the comments with the timestamps, give him a thank you. I know he really appreciates that. So, all right. That's going to do it for today's stream, guys. Again, if you're a channel member, look out for the Members Lounge. It's going live in a couple minutes. And to everybody else, I will catch all of you guys in the next stream as Boss almost falls off my lap. So until next time, guys, take care.